Our final recipient for the Raymond S. Kellis Award is for Leadership in Administration. This staff member is described as someone who serves the district in the Peoria way. What does that mean? It means this person does what is right because they know what will benefit children. This person supports people in the district office because they believe we are all part of the Peoria family. And as a result, this administrator is involved in everything. This award recipient is not outspoken, but the breadth and depth of knowledge is always spot on. They have an extraordinary communication style and have modeled a personal commitment to ensure a successful learning environment for all. This person is the master at blending management and leadership skills. Under her leadership, her staff respect her, and her students flourish. She is the driving force that helps make her school and our district a better place to work. To demonstrate this person's extraordinary involvement throughout our district, this person has assisted with, or served on, or spearheaded a multitude of things, including, but not limited to, teacher evaluations, administrator evaluations, instructional coaching study group, PLC Summer Conference Planning Committee, property and accountability, kinder camp, advanced ed accreditation, aspiring administrator teacher, and more. If data supports it, they will try it. She is visible, trustworthy, supports the district's mission and vision with a solid strategic plan to make it work. Her staff says that she has an unwavering loyalty. I am more than pleased to share with you that our 2017 Raymond S. Kellis Leadership in Administration Award goes to Mrs. Marla Hobbs.
I have been in this district for a long time, and I think about the people that have received this award, and one of which is my boss.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
I just don't feel even half of what those people are to me, and I appreciate them each and every day.
We'll come out to
My parents were Pride of Peoria recipients at one point, and they've both passed on. And I think about them often, and I think about the things that they have done for this district. And I look out at all of you, and I see the greatness in each one of you. And I love Peoria, and I know we all do. And I love my family, because if it wasn't for my family, I would not be here. So all I can say is thank you, and thank you to my Marshall Ranch family, who has seen me through kind of a rough year personally, but I want to tell each and every one of them how much I appreciate them, how much I love them, and my family as well. Thank you.
Yep.
Wildcats, excuse this interruption, but we have more wonderful news. The Pride of Peoria Prize Patrol was just here, and we have another winner, Miss Kate Jansen. Congratulations, our wonderful Pride of Peoria. Way to go, Miss Jansen. We're very proud of you.
that you got Pride of Peoria, and I just told you that he got Pride of Peoria, and you both got Pride of Peoria.
There's nothing better than the respect of your peers, because that means you made it. Thank you.
Our next recipient will receive the Leadership and Support Staff Award. This individual is described as a problem solver who is courageous, trusting, energetic, caring, organized, and friendly. No job is too big or too small for this award recipient. This person is a servant leader and has been at the school since it opened. They are the go-to person when there are 60 employees who all need something: paper requests, supplies, budget, field trips, maintenance, scheduling, grades, parent calls, computer problems, clubs and committees, and more. Who works on the Title I budgets? This person does. Who serves as a crossing guard at the last minute? This person for sure. Who needs a PO pushed through at the last minute and can help make that happen? That never happens. Who needs a transportation request pushed through? Who needs to help on a Saturday for campus cleanup? Who does all the shopping for honor roll awards, staff appreciation, school celebrations, and on and on? Who organizes the attic and cleans it out? Who designs school banners? Who helps remodel the front office? This person does all that and more. The list of ongoing tasks is exhaustive, but that is not the personality of this extremely dedicated employee. For 30 years, she has served as a mentor, a friend, and a great role model. She gives her whole heart and soul for the campus. She is compassionate, dedicated, and makes the Saguaro Ranch staff and students extremely proud. Let us recognize the 2017 recipient of the Raymond S. Kellis Leadership and Support Staff, the school secretary at Saguaro Ranch Elementary, Renee Kochka.
Babysitting. everybody. Can't see faces up here. I'm speechless. As everybody knows me, I'm usually not speechless. But tonight, I'm speechless. But wow, what an honor. It's got me so shaken. Kathy was talking with me. My job, to me, I'm so fortunate and lucky to work in this district. I remember 29 years ago that Al Sinclair hired me. I just kept coming back, and he was so tired of looking at me. He gave me the job. And I've been there ever since. I've met so many awesome people throughout my life here at Swore Ranch and in our district, and probably half of you I've worked with throughout my years. And it's like my family, along with my family, everybody who I love everybody. I love coming to work, and to give me an award to do this, it's just, it does leave me speechless. And the support staff here that every day I have to call, you make my job, you make me who I am. Everyone here, my family makes me who I am, and I'd like to thank you for such a great award. Thank you.
I'm proud to represent a district with such high-quality staff, and I could not be more honored to present this year's well-deserving award recipients. Tonight's first Raymond S. Kellis Leadership Award recognizes leadership in teaching. This recipient has been a dedicated employee for 18 years and is a graduate of the Peoria Unified School District. Colleagues describe this person as loyal, valued, and respected within the community. Without a doubt, this award recipient puts students first. This person is an advocate for their students and teaches them to be leaders. They understand the value of character, integrity, and are able to bring out these qualities in their students. This dedicated staff member is extremely organized and has the ability to identify the important details needing attention. Whether it's providing support to students, understanding the concerns and needs of teachers, developing strong, trusting relationships with staff, students, and the community, they are what many would call, actually do call, the whole package. This individual and her students recently hosted two very special events for a staff member who was gravely ill, whose school community was wanting to recognize and pay tribute to the beloved teacher. And the work that was put forth for such a recognition was done in such a beautiful way, something that can never be replicated or replaced. This person is a master teacher, an excellent curriculum writer, an award-winning volleyball coach, a phenomenal leader in her school's flex period activities, and most notably, a superior student council advisor. Without further ado, please join me in recognizing your 2017 Raymond S. Kellis Leader in Teaching Award winner, Kathy Wilson, Ironwood High School.
I've watched countless people receive this award over the past several years, many of whom were my teachers, and I would never even know that I was standing here. One of the reasons I am standing here is because I am a product of this district, and the teachers that poured into my life, that spoke truth into my life, that encouraged me, that pushed me to believe in myself. They are the reasons that I'm standing here, and a lot of them are standing out there and are back here, and they know who they are. And I'm so grateful for that. And I just want to say thank you to the entire staff, administration, and students of Ironwood. God has truly blessed me to be back at the high school that I graduated from. And I am just, every day I learn so much from all of those people. And I am so grateful to them. I couldn't have asked to work at a better place. The staff truly is a family. And they've been with me through the ups and the downs over the last many, many years, and I am grateful for that. And I just want to thank my family who were up here for just always supporting me throughout the years. It is just an honor and a privilege. I don't really know what else to say. Fun fact, in the 5th grade, my best friend and I, Lynette, at Oakwood Elementary School, we got the opportunity to interview Dr. Kellis for a school newsletter. And it was one of the highlights of my elementary years, and I got to know him through that conversation and what an incredible man he was. And so I am truly just honored and humbled to receive this award in his honor. And so thank you so very much.
We'll just be a couple of minutes. We're having technical difficulties, so hopefully just 2 or 3 minutes. like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Today will be led by Taylor D. Young, a Cactus Senior. All stand, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms, right, face, forward, arch.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. Let's move on to item number 4, convene public hearing pursuant to ARS 15-948C and D and 15-905D to review revision number 2 to the expenditure budget, including the maintenance and operations and district additional assistance, formerly capital outlay and unrestricted capital budgets for 2016-17. Mr. Hicks?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler, colleagues and community members. Me too.
A motion and a second.
I move that we convene a public hearing pursuant to that.
Second.
Thank you. Members, we will need to, do we need to vote? Dana?
Yes.
On this? Okay. Members, please cast your vote.
Mine isn't either.
Mine, fine.
Every time. There we go.
All right, passes 5-0. Mr. Hicks, now you're up.
I apologize for that. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler, colleagues and community members. Thank you very much for allowing me to present our budget revision. I appreciate the audience that we have here tonight for our budget. I appreciate that comment as well. This is somewhat of a formality, but the requirement is, oops, do I not have control?
Beverly has control.
All right, so it is somewhat of a formality, but May 14th is the last day to actually revise budgets. One of the requirements that are anytime you're touching the RCL revenue control limit, a function of the budget limits that we are set, we're required to have a public hearing that satisfies that requirement. One of the things that we're here at the very end of the year, revising the budget, is this is where we do a little bit of movement back and forth and capturing any final last budget limits that were out there. We want to try to capture as much as possible. I'll try to be brief. Our maintenance and operation, our M&O budget, we're looking to increase it from $211 million to $212 million. This is really two major things. It's one major thing, two elements to it. Our district additional assistance, we're transferring money from district additional into the M&O, and there was an increase in the deduction from our transportation funding. So correspondingly, our district additional assistance is going down because we're transferring money out of district additional assistance. It's going into M&O. It's coming from here. This is, three areas. So yes, we're transferring money out. Yes, we had a previous year reduction, and we also had a change in our district additional assistance reduction. This is one Our board has heard me many times talk about this. The ADE gives us an estimate of our cut. So our cut, we should be receiving $17 million. We receive only about 13, 14% of it, but we don't know until the end of the year. So they give us an estimate and they do the final adjustment. So this has that adjustment in it. This is one, I will say, later on at the very end of the meeting when very few of us will be here. There's a district budget report. On that district budget report was when we were preparing that, I said, wow, our M&O is very low. Ms. Myers, our administrator of budget and finance, said, well, I told you we transferred too much into capital and into our district additional assistance, and this is correcting that. So we wait for these opportunities. We don't come back out on a regular basis. We do a proposed in June and adopted in July, revised in December, and our final revision is in May. So we wait until that time to do those official revisions. Classroom site fund, this is a very easy one. It's just a little bit change in the student count, kicked up the amount. We'll add it. Obviously, this was not part of the calculations when we do for teachers. This is a fund that only goes to teachers. It'll be included in the next year's calculation as just an increase in the fund, so it rolls into their fund, and the teachers will get this additional amount. So just in summary, just repeating what I've just said, the transportation reduction, increase in the student count for the classroom site fund, we transferred between the two funds, and there was a prior year adjustment. And so there's the summary of the three. The other thing we do is that at this time we also make little changes to those state and federal grants, mainly because when the auditors come out and they start looking at our AFR, if there's a big discrepancy, they'll say, why is there such a huge discrepancy? This allows us to get it a little bit more aligned so that we don't have those discrepancies and get more aligned with what our projected expenses are at that time. So they're minor in those. And that is a quick budget revision update. And so I'll stand for any comments. There'll be no changes when the actual agenda comes for a vote and a couple items. So I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Mrs. Doan? Mr. Sandoval?
No.
Mrs. Connect? No. Mrs. Seha Martinez?
No.
Okay. I don't either.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Next agenda item is adjourn. We have to call for a motion on that. I was just going to read it. Adjourn public hearing and return to regular session. It's an action item. I need a motion and a second. I didn't have any green slips, but if anybody would like to at this point. No takers? Okay, we'll move on. Okay, so adjourn public hearing and return to regular session. It's an action item, so I would need a motion and a second.
Move to adjourn the public hearing. I second.
All right, members, please cast your vote. All right, passes 5-0. Agenda item number 6. Consideration of approval of revision number 2 to the expenditure budget, including maintenance and operations and district additional assistance, formerly capital outlay and unrestricted capital budgets for 2016-2017. Mr. Hicks, do we need to say anything? Okay.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
Then
I move to approve the adjustments as outlined by Mr. Hicks.
and a second?
I'll second.
All right. This is an action item. Please cast your vote.
Keep doing that.
Passes 5-0. Okay. Our favorite part of this evening is item number 7, staff recognitions. Mrs. Aries?
Good evening, President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. Before we begin, I would like to thank Cactus High School, Peoria High School JROTC students. They were the ones that presented the flag for us this evening, and they are under the direction of Colonel Zamora, Colonel Ottinger, so I just want to say thank you very much for having those students be here and to lead us. this evening in the pledge. Well, as you know, Peoria Unified is extremely proud of our CTE program. That's our Career and Technical Education program, known around the state and known around the nation. And so we are here this evening to celebrate really just a fraction of those state winners from this past year. Of course, there's just so many, and it is such a busy time of year, but we did select a handful to have for you this evening, and so we could highlight some of their achievements, and we're so pleased to have them. CTE really provides incredible opportunities for thousands of students across our district that participate in those programs. So as I said, we're going to take just a few moments to highlight some of their achievements from their CTE organizations, their support organizations that they participate in throughout the year. Those that we'd like to recognize are from DECA, and many of you may have heard of DECA. It's a marketing, finance, hospitality, and management student organization. There's Ed Rising, a future educators student organization. HOSA, and that's for health science, and that's the health science student organization. FBLA, another one you've likely heard of, business management and entrepreneurship. FFA, an agricultural science student organization. Skills USA, which is a skilled workforce student organization, and FCCLA, which is a family and consumer science student organization. So I know you hear a lot of those acronyms, and it's just important that we recognize the work that they do and their involvement in those student organizations. Before we highlight those students, I would like to take a quick moment to recognize any of the advisors that help to support the students in those programs that might have joined us this evening. If you are here, advisors or teachers, if you could stand so we could give you a quick round of applause. Thank you for what you do. We have any advisors with us? And another one, she's already standing, but of course she leads all of our CTE programs. That's Dr. Patty Baltram, and she does just a phenomenal job. I'd like to recognize her. Well, I mentioned we have an awful lot of state winners, but it's 176 to be exact, so it's very, very much something to be proud of for our district, these state winners. Like I said, there's a few of them we'd like to introduce to you this evening. Students, if you hear me call your name, if you would stand so that we can recognize you, and we'll go through the list, and then of course we'll bring a couple of them forward for you board members in case you have any comments that you'd like to share for them. But we'd like to begin by recognizing Lexi Norton and Michaela McLeod, from Lake Pleasant Elementary School. They took first place in special effects makeup at the Junior High Skills USA competition this year. Very, very cool. And of course, you already heard from Taylor DeYoung that led us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening, but she serves as Vice Commander of the Cactus High School Air Force JROTC program, and she was named Outstanding Overall Cadet and led the unit to an Exceeds Standards rating during the recent inspection. So big round of applause to you, Taylor. And Centennial High School's Robotics Club, including Brandon Hang, Trevor Gardner, Brian Bai, Garrett Rio, and they were led by Diana Denton for being international champions in the Zero Robotics competition, excuse me. So we're very, very proud of those students. And of course, I already mentioned Dr. Beltram, but I did want just to note a little something special about her for you this evening. As our director, 3 national awards. Most recently, she was helping to lead the program to receive the Magna Award for Honorable Mention for the TLC program, and I know board members, you're familiar with that program, and the first ever district-wide model district program for CTE from the International Center for Leadership and Education. So we are very proud of you for that, Dr. Beltram. And last but certainly not least, you hear all around the state people talk about our FFA program and how remarkable it is. Peoria High School's agricultural instructor, Mr. Brian Fuller, earned the Arizona Agriculture Teacher of the Year and the first Arizona Agricultural Science program to offer all 3 science credits for graduation. So very big congratulations to Mr. Fuller. And I know we recognize some of our advisors, teachers, and some of our students, but we know there are some very supportive family members that help these students. And so if there are any family members here supporting these CTE students, could you stand so we could recognize you? If we have any family members here cheering you on this evening, we'll go home and give them a high five. How about that? How about that? Thank them very much for their support. Well, at this time, I'm going to invite Mr. Fuller to come up to the microphone, as well as Taylor DeYoung, and they are here for any questions or comments that you may have from our board members. We present them to you on behalf of our whole group of winners this year.
Thank you very much. I'll open up for anybody that would like to speak. Mrs. Connect.
Congratulations, Mr. Fuller. I was over and I got to see your plants and your greenhouse, and didn't know that I was in the presence of greatness, and I'm really proud of you, and congratulations, that's wonderful. And I love our NJROTC programs. Congratulations to you, young lady. Just to comment on the color guard that was here today, it's wonderful to see them, but when they're unified as the two schools together, that's even extra special. So congratulations to both of you.
All right, any other board members? Mrs. Ceja Martinez?
Just congratulations, and your hard work is definitely appreciated and noticed, so thank you so much.
Mrs. Doan?
Oh, I will echo that. Congratulations. It's showing the hard work, and I appreciate the young people interested in the military and patriotism to our country. And agriculture and stuff is not really glamorous, but it's so necessary and much appreciated by us all. Thank you very much for your work.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, I would agree. Congratulations. It's certainly warranted. And for all the students that are part of the program, Dr. B, thank you. Mm-hmm. I think, for me, it's, we've always talked about complacency, and I think there's no doubt that you've learned a lot and have done a lot. But, there's definitely, as you move forward, there's more to learn, more to do. So continue along the path of your resiliency and perseverance, and congratulations again.
And I just also wanted to echo my board members' comments. Congratulations, and thank you all for being here. Thank you. Mrs. Aries, is there any picture time now or later?
Yes, we could certainly do pictures now
It's
if
up
you'd
to
like.
you.
Yeah, we could take a quick moment. So the students, as I read your name and shared a little bit about you, if I called your name this evening, if you would stand and come forward, we're going to take a photo of you right in front of our board members here. And don't be shy. They're used to moving out of the way for the photo, so it's all right.
This is like the shyest group tonight. Right?
Good, there you go.
Background that you're moved out. Background. That's pretty background.
Good idea.
Very big congratulations to them.
Ms. Terry, may I jump in just for a moment? I want to make sure we give out a shout out as well. I am so proud of our CTE program, but I also want to make sure that we recognize that we're part of a JTED WestMec and how important and how dynamic that relationship is to make all of this possible. It is absolutely true, everything we heard about this is a model program across our state, across our country, and that relationship with WestMec is a big part of what makes that go, and I'm especially appreciative of that. Thank you for...
Oh, thank you for saying that, and we do have 2 WestMec board members here, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, President Pingarelli, members of the board, and Dr. Stifler, we do have just a couple of other recognitions this evening. As you know, spring is a very busy time. We're hearing about all the wonderful things our students have done throughout the year, and they tend to culminate right around this time. But a program I know you're all familiar with, and I'm hoping those that are joined us this evening and that are streaming us live have either heard of it or will get a little bit more information about this gem that we have here right in our district. It's Peoria Unified's MET Professional Academy, and the MET stands for Medical Engineering Technology, a program that is a little bit different than CTE, although making quite the impact. It's grown in the very short time that we have been fortunate enough to have it right here in the heart of our district, located on the campus of Peoria High School. The students in particular that we're going to highlight from the MET Engineering strand are under the direction of Daryl Kidd, and they really have made a very recent, very big impact in a couple of different ways at some local tech competitions that they've participated in. During an event with Cahoots Foundation in Phoenix that recently brought together entrepreneurs and community leaders, students were allowed to see what it takes to move their ideas through the business development process, and they were actually able to help prepare and pitch ideas to a team of judges. These med students were able to collaborate with peers from other schools and to learn public speaking skills, research validation, business modeling, startup teamwork, and so much more through this process. Because of their hard work and dedication, the MET students received the top awards in this event, so we are certainly very proud of them. I think we have a number of the students that have joined us this evening, so same as how we did previously. Students, if you do hear your name called, if you could stand so that we can recognize you. Jennifer James, Seth Mazza, Robbie Kuhn, and 2 other students also won the Best Overall Venture Grand Prize for their idea of Precious Tech. This was a venture to remind busy parents and pet owners to check the car to make sure their infants or pets are not left in the car. So congratulations to them. Jennifer James was recognized as Best Presenter at the event. Is Jennifer James here with us? Congratulations. Quentin Ellis, Hannah Chen, and 5 other students were recognized for Best Team Collaboration. This team created Hobby Kit, a venture designed to provide low-cost introductory materials and instruction to people who are interested in learning about a new hobby. Congratulations to you. And lastly, Roman Carrillo was awarded the Golden Ear Award for demonstrating empathy, reception of critical feedback, and exemplifying the design thinking model. So big congratulations to you. If you get a chance to check it out, there's an awesome video on the MET Facebook page that really highlights this event and our students' achievements. So I hope you will not only go on there and check it out, but also share it through all of your social networks as well. It's really remarkable. So a big congratulations to these MET students. We're really extremely proud of this program, and want to make sure that we're highlighting them. They have a handful, actually, pages of other recognitions and some of the successes that they've been able to celebrate, like I said, in a very, very short time. I'm going to try to condense them so I can share just a little bit for you, so you have kind of a flavor of really how fast this program is exploding, how much it is truly in high demand for our students, and not only how much they're appreciating being a part of it, but the big impact that they're really rippling through our community and at the state level and the national level. Really something for us to all be very, very proud of, and something to watch for in the future. On Saturday, May 6th, MET students competed in the National Pitching Social Entrepreneurship Competition for the Seed Spot Next High School Demo Day. All 3 of the MET teams earned prizes such as business mentoring from the University of Advancing Technology and a Google Chromecast streaming device, so that was a pretty cool thing. In addition, the Edison Universe, which is an international organization honoring excellence in new product innovation and human-centered design, offered scholarships exclusively to some of the students that participate in the MET Professional Academy. Those students were Hannah Chen, Seth Mazza, that earned scholarships for innovative projects, so we're very, very proud of you, and I know we already recognized you. Just you can't get any more awesome, and then there you go and do it. So that's really very cool. Met student Zachary O'Donnell won first place for the ASU Engineering Projects in Community Service and Cisco Internet of Everything Challenge for his drone project developed to assist police and first responders to scout emergency situations via drone surveillance. He received $5,000 for his award-winning project. This was at the ASU Epics High Showcase on April 20th at the Arizona Science Center. So we're just so proud of that work. I could go on and on about how fabulous this program is, but I'm going to, at this point, turn the program over to the incredible director that has really taken this program to new heights, actually launched it from its inception. We're really pleased to have Adriana Parsons here with us, so I'm going to invite her up to the microphone. I'm also going to ask Daryl Kidd to come up in case our board members have any questions or comments for them. I'm also going to not let the microphone escape me before taking the opportunity to very much thank Adriana for her service. She'll be departing from us here shortly, but we have so appreciated all that she has done to launch and to grow this program. So we really couldn't have seen it go to such heights if it wasn't for her, and we appreciate her very much. So at this time, President Pingerelli, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Let's start with Mrs. Doan.
That was very impressive. I'm very glad to have seen this presentation, and I know that was just the tip of the iceberg. I do appreciate your hard work, and congratulations on your success, and to all the students and to our community too, because it's going to be a big help to all of us. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
So, Adriana, thank you. You know, I've been able to, I really have had the honor to attend a few of your events, and I definitely just very appreciative, certainly, of your passion, you know, for our students. You know, and I've always said it, you know, we have a culture of nurturing the creativity of our, you know, entire student body, and you're one of those individuals whose heart is in the right place, and both feet are always in, so thank you for that. For you students, very impressed. You know, what you do every day to, you know, follow your dreams and your passion is incredible. And there's no doubt that every day you'll be confronted with opportunities and obstacles, but just don't ever forget, you know, where you came from, who you are, and stay steadfast and focused on where you're headed. So thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Sejar Martinez?
Thank you as well. I echo that. I can tell, a ton of work, but not only that, all those things that you do, your program also does community outreach. I've seen you guys out in all our community events trying to educate our community and getting our students involved, but there are other options other than traditional universities, and so all those programs are a home run, and your efforts are definitely displayed this evening, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Mrs. Connect?
So I know some of the kids that have left the program and have gone on to pursue the careers that they really started with you. So congratulations to you both. That's really what it's all about. As someone who was here when we were talking about whether or not we were going to save Old Main, and the community wanted us to do that, and we did that, and we found just the right thing to go in there, which is the MET program. So it's one of the finest signatures of this school district. Thank you to both of you, how you have led those kids and inspired them so much. This is one of the things that you know, gets them out of bed and keeps them going to school, because it's interesting, and it's new to them, and it's really relevant. So that's so very, very important. Thank you very much.
I also wanted to thank you, and it looks like you guys got off easy tonight with no questions. So thank you so much for coming this evening, and thank you for everybody.
If we could have all of our Met students come up, though, we will take a quick photo of you, if you don't mind, and Adriana and Daryl will have you as well. And as they're making their way up there, I might also just quickly recognize the two other teachers that also are vital in the MET program. And I know we have one of them here with us this evening, Justin Davis, who will be joining the program. So we're very pleased to have him there to take the lead, and also Kathy Kasny, who will be leading the medical strand. So big congratulations to you all.
Photobomb.
She hit her head. I'm all right.
I've done that twice, Mrs. Connect. Are you all right? I did it twice. You okay?
Well, President Pingarelli, if I may, I just do have one additional recognition this evening. This one's just a little bit bittersweet, I think, for us all tonight. In August of 1989, Dana McCarty began her career in the Peoria Unified School District after being hired as the administrative secretary by then Superintendent Dr. Raymond Kellis. To give you some perspective on the change that's occurred since then, at that time the district office was over in our Troy Annex building, and this very building was actually still under construction. In 1996, she went to work in the elementary education department as Dr. Denton Santorelli's administrative secretary, and she remained in that position as the department merged with the secondary education department to become what we know it as today is the K-12 Academic Services Department. She moved back up to the deputy superintendent's office before going full circle back to support the superintendent and the governing board when Dr. Santorelli took the helm in 2007. President Pingarelli, if I could, I'd like to invite Mrs. McCarty to come up to the podium so that we could recognize her. Tonight will be her last governing board meeting, and during her nearly 28 years serving this district, she has become the source for not only historical perspective on decisions made within the district, but really for all matters impacting the district and on K-12 education beyond our boundaries. She's developed a strong rapport with staff, parents, community members, vendors, and even her peers. Dana takes great pride in her work. It's really evident in all that she does, and I know you all know that really more so than anyone else. Dana really does embody our district's values, putting people first and really always doing what is right. She will be a tremendous loss to our district, but we are really wishing her well in her future endeavors and wishing her all the best. So, Mrs. McCarty, on behalf of the Peoria Unified School District, we do have a little something for you this evening.
Oh, wow.
So a token of our appreciation for your 28 years of service to our district, we appreciate you and we will miss you very much. Thank you so much. It's rather heavy, so I can take it back now if you want.
Thank you. You know, I was thinking as I walked up here how ironic it is that I'm here before you tonight for the first time and the last time at the podium. So, President Pingarelli, Dr. Stifler, members of the board, and my colleagues here, there really aren't any words to express the gratitude I feel as I stand here. Thank you all for everything you've taught me, all the laughs, all the cherished memories, and most of all, the support you've given to me and my family, particularly in the last year. You've set the bar, really, for the entire educational community here in Arizona, and it's with great pride that I say I've spent 28 years here in the best school district in Arizona. Yeah. In June, I'll take all I've learned to Agua Fria Union High School District with the hope that I might, in some small way, enhance their organization and assist them in their own quest for continuous improvement. My heart and myself, I will maintain my residency in PUSD, and I look forward to any opportunity that I might have to continue to serve the district in some other capacity. Lastly, I'd just like to say to the board, you've been given a great gift here in human capital. The teachers, the administrators, the classified staff are the best there is. Trust them, take their counsel as I have, trust their counsel as I have, I guarantee you they will not steer you wrong. It's not a goodbye. This isn't goodbye. It's just a see you later. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Dana, if you would appease me, I would love to have a picture with you, with the governing board, if you don't mind, because, thank you. Okay, everybody?
Oh, careful. Let's do it up here. Let's do it up here.
You want to do it here?
Oh, up there?
No, let's do it down here.
She runs this anyway.
Okay. I guess we're going up front.
Judy, we're going up front. You too, Dr. Stifler.
Dana, I just had wanted to say one last thing. I appreciate the picture, but I've only worked with you for 2.5 years, but you are the one that I always come to. So you will be sorely missed, and I'm sure everybody that works with you, that's dealt with you on a day-to-day basis for the last centuries, well, not centuries, decades, decades, sorry, that they will miss you greatly. You're welcome.
May I just make one comment? Sorry. So most of you don't know this, but Dana and I share the exact same month and the date of birth. So I know at the beginning of this year we stated that we would do an annual, birthday lunch. So although you're leaving, we're still going to do the annual birthday lunch. Okay. All right.
I will just say, in 11 years, you have always been knowledgeable, you have always been professional, and you have always been kind. Thank you.
Yep. Seriously, I don't know what we're going to do without you.
All right. Next agenda item. Agenda item number 8, board recognitions. I will go to Mrs. Connect first.
Oh, I will go down, I have a long list. It is a busy time of year, but I will go down it quickly because I know with the hour gets late. I want to thank Dr. Stifler for coming to the West Valley Women's Luncheon and wowing the crowd. That was fabulous. It was Education Month, so several superintendents got to come out and talk about what's great in their school district, and as usual, Dr. Stifler and PUSD shined. Congratulations to Marshall Ranch and their A+ celebration. That was amazing, so moving, so very moving. Congratulations to all those students and teachers and administration there. Congratulations to the teachers that got grants and the students that got scholarships, thanks to the Peoria Education Foundation. I want to thank Dr. Maria Harper Marinick, who is the chancellor for Maricopa Community College District. She ended her keynote speech at the Westmark Economic Development Summit today, telling everybody how important it is to be supporters of public education. I want to congratulate art students from Centennial, Cactus, and Sunrise Mountain, who, along with other West Valley schools, have art on display right now at the West Valley Arts Council's Art Museum out in Surprise. So if you get a chance to go out and see that, I stopped by today. It really mind-boggling that this is done by, that work is done by such young students. Congratulations to the PSBN students who were recognized for their efforts last week. And to Cactus, thank you to them for inviting me to join them for their National Honor Society induction. And I think that's it. It's an exciting, fun time to celebrate all that is good and right in public schools and the Peoria Unified School District. Thank you.
Mrs. Sejar-Martinez?
Yes, thank you for going through that list, Mrs. Connect. A lot of firsts this year being a new governing board member, and a tremendous amount of accolades and recognition to our staff and our students. It's definitely overwhelming at times. There are three main things that stick out that I want to address. One, at Skyview Elementary, they have a leadership program there, and one of the programs that stood out was called the Green Team. They have a group of students that lead recycling, and then they reached out to the city, got these blue buckets, and provide that service to their school and encourage that community involvement. To lead me to that, the Peoria Leadership Institute at the community outreach program, or the community service program, they also said that when the city of Peoria recycles, it generates revenue. So our students at Skyview Elementary School are generating revenue for the city of Peoria, so home run to them. The next thing, last night I had the honor of going to the community outreach program. As I mentioned, I highly recommend attending the free Peoria Leadership Institute. It talked about community development, zoning, and the projections our city is going to face over the next 50 years. So what a great time, especially on a night like this. They also talked about support services, and I want to share this because I know people live stream this. Free seminars, one of them, a pathway to home ownership. Please take advantage to our resources that our city of Peoria offers. And grandparents raising grandchildren, also free. Great city that offers services, and please continue to share them with your neighbors because it is a great partnership. And then last, I visited Sunrise Mountain High School, again talking about serving in leadership, and Vice Mayor John Edwards joined us. And one thing, two things, the students were awesome, very respectful, professional, engaged, showed empathy. That is definitely a trait that is hard to find in our youth. But one thing that sticks out in my mind that Vice Mayor John Edwards stated, he says, if your conviction is strong enough, do not give up. So thank Vice Mayor John Edwards for attending, and thank you for your time.
Mr. Sandoval?
Thank you. So, while we're still in the Teacher Appreciation Week, for me, I definitely, want to make sure that we recognize all the teachers, that we have within our district. You're Tyler Scholars, and, you continue every day to inspire hope in our students. So thank you. Lastly, I continue to be just awed, if you will, by how we adapt to the needs of our students as a district. Over the past weekend, I attended a benefit function for an organization that's titled Homeless Youth Connection. And, essentially what that organization does, it provides solutions for students who are homeless. Not only provides them with homes, but also provides them with the ability to play sports if there are fees. They take care of those, et cetera. But again, the individual that we have within our district that certainly manages that partnership is Sean Schubert. So I want to say thank you to Sean, for continuing to do what's needed to make sure that our students are put in a position to be successful throughout the walls of PUSD and throughout college, career, and life.
Mrs. Doan? Did you have anything for this evening?
I do. I wanted to say, all the time when I'm driving around, I see our buses everywhere. And I look at them with a certain amount of possessiveness I never looked at them with before. I was like, that's our school, that's our bus. And I just asked Dr. Stifler the name of our director. He said his name is Mr. Doug King. And I probably knew that, but I forgot. And I want to say that it's something to see that and to know our students are safe on the road and to see that year after year. And I know it's a lot of work. And I remember riding buses for 45 minutes to get to school and things like that. And I want to put out a thank you to our transportation department for all the care and the hard work and just putting up with some of the things that happen on board those buses and taking care of our students. It's a good job, and I don't think you get a lot of glamour out of it or anything, but thank you to our transportation department for all their hard work.
Thank you very much. I don't have anything this evening. I've been away for a couple weeks at our daughter's graduation, so I will have something next board meeting. At this time, before we get to agenda item number 9, I know we have quite a few people here, and don't feel bad if anybody wants to leave. It's not a bad time. Or you can stay around. It'll probably be a long meeting, but if you want to go have some dinner or... Thank you for coming. All right, next agenda item is public comment, request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda. Tonight we have one speaker, Dr. Burku. Welcome.
Thank you. I haven't, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Stifler, I do watch you on a regular basis. I don't come down here often. You're one of my favorite shows when you're rebroadcast. But tonight, I came here because I want to congratulate the majority of the board for the resolution they sent opposing Senate Bill 1431. I follow things very closely in government, and especially state government. And that was the resolution opposing the expansion of empowerment scholarship accounts. Peoria was one of 64 school districts that sent a resolution similar to that to the governor and to the state. You know, and I was very interested, so I reviewed the minutes. I went online and reviewed the minutes of all that I could find of all these school boards. And just to see, you know, just to kind of get a glimpse of what occurred in those communities by their school board members. And what I found was that all those school boards voted unanimously to support their public schools, except Peoria. I was alarmed to discover that Peoria School Board did not have a unanimous resolution. I want to compliment the 3 members making up the majority for that resolution last month. 1 board member was absent, making a quorum of 4 board members. However, 1 board member voted no on this resolution to oppose it for the children of our community. I came down to face this board and express my disappointment with that 1 member of that school board and who would vote negatively to support the children of this community. An elected board member takes an oath to faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of their office. Shame on that member who would vote against their community and their children. Thank you.
Well, that one board member would have an opportunity to say something if she would desire to.
I believe in freedom of choice. I did not vote against our children. I voted for them. Choice always makes better. Monopolies strangle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, agenda item number 10. Address agenda and consider adoption or recommended changes. Are there any changes needed, Mrs. Connect? Ms. Martinez? No. Mr. Sandoval? No?
No.
Okay. All right. Agenda item number 11. Consideration of recommendations for administrative appointments for the 2017-18 school year. Mrs. Lewis, I'm sorry.
President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. On behalf of Dr. Davidson, I'm bringing forward 3 recommendations for administrative positions in our district. Please note that contrary to the information that you are given, we are not yet prepared to make recommendations for the position of principal or assistant principal. However, we're making recommendations for the grant writer, the executive director of secondary education, and the director of MET. With that said, is it your preference that I read the introduction or the biographies of each applicant or of each recommended position for the post, and then you vote, or that I read all 3?
Dr. Stifler, how would you like to?
Recommend that you make one group recommendation.
Okay.
They have all of the bios, and then after a vote, hopefully a successful vote, but a vote, then those people come up to the podium for a moment.
Absolutely. It is recommended that Cheryl Zeiss be appointed to the position of grant writer for the Peoria Unified School District. Mrs. Zeiss currently works as the proposal writer for a mid-sized government contractor, Innovative Emergency Management, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. In that role for the past 10 years, she has coordinated proposal teams, written proposal content, coordinated the work of other writers, and prepared and delivered proposal presentations. She is experienced in all phases of grant proposal development, from the early stages of capture through production and delivery. Ms. Zeiss brings to this position grant writing experience, strong communication skills, and experience as an educator. She has a bachelor's degree in English and secondary ed. Our second recommendation is that Mr. John Croto be appointed to the position of Executive Director of Secondary Education for Peoria Unified School District. Mr. Croto will oversee all PUSD high schools, as well as career and technical education, the Met Professional Academy, and athletics and clubs. Mr. Croto has extensive secondary education leadership experience at both the school and district level. Prior to 2011, when he began his successful work in our district as the principal of Liberty High School, Mr. Croto worked in Glendale Union High School District, serving as an assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, district safety administrator, high school principal, and high school assistant principal. Under his leadership, multiple schools over several years have earned the prestigious Excelling A label. In 2006, his school was designated a model school by the International Center for Leadership in Education. Mr. Croto is president-elect of the Arizona School Administrators Secondary Division and an executive member of the Arizona Interscholastic Association. And lastly, it is recommended that Mrs. Elsa Kramer be appointed to the position of Director of MET Professional Academy. She currently serves on the faculty at Grand Canyon University, where she is also the program manager for the Biology Secondary Education Program. In addition, she's the blog manager and editor-in-chief of BrainSTEM, a sanctioned blog page for the College of Science, Engineering, and Technology at Grand Canyon University. Mrs. Kramer has also worked as a biology teacher in Dysart Unified and Tullison school districts. Prior to teaching, Mrs. Kramer was a laboratory manager responsible for the management of all operations of a full-service immunology lab. Mrs. Kramer has an extensive background as a professional educator and is scheduled to complete a doctoral degree in health education in December of this year. like to recommend these 3 people for the positions of Director of MET, Executive Director of Secondary Ed, and Grant Writer.
All right, this is an action item. I would need to have a motion and a second.
Mrs. Pingarelli, I move to approve the 3 hires as recommended by administration.
Second.
All right. Members, please cast your vote. It passes 5-0. Would you like to have, introduce the?
I would suggest that we do that.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Cheryl Zeiss, the person who will be our new grant writer, is in Louisiana. She will be moving here. She is not available tonight. However, we do have Mr. Croto and Mrs. Kramer here. I'm not sure if you have questions.
Let John go first,
Okay.
so that he can show what brief remarks look like.
President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler, thank you. I'm excited about the opportunity. This is an amazing district. We've heard all the wonderful things tonight, and I am excited about leading the high schools and the Med Academy and PFA and everything else you've heard. So thank you very much, and thank you for your confidence, and we'll do an awesome job.
Good evening, President Pingarelli, Dr. Stifler, members of the board. I am honored and excited to take this opportunity as Director of MET. The foundation has been laid by my predecessor. I couldn't ask for a better foundation. I couldn't ask for a better opportunity to show what a flagship program in the district will look like. I can't say how honored I am and how thrilled I am at the opportunity to take this program to new heights and to show everyone what our students really are capable of, not just in the Med Academy, but within the Peoria district. So I'll stand for questions if you have any.
Are there any questions, comments from the board?
Welcome. I look forward to getting to know you. You're absolutely right. MET program is just got so much incredible potential, and we can't wait to watch you make it shine. That's terrific. Mr. Croto, Liberty's gonna be weird without you. But, you know, for as long as I've been around, there's been commentary every once in a while that the highest levels of administration were widely represented by people with elementary experience. And so I think bringing you on with your secondary experience will be a strong asset for the school district. And certainly we know your credentials and who you are, and it seems like a very wise hire to me. So I'm very pleased. Thank you.
Mrs. Sahar Martinez.
Thank you again for your leadership. Accessibility is one of key characteristics I look forward in an administrator, and I've seen nothing but great things at Liberty and heard great things, and so that accessibility and getting to know you through this process, I look forward to that. Thank you.
Mrs. Doan.
Congratulations to both of you. Welcome aboard.
Mr. Sandoval.
Ms. Kramer, welcome to PUSD, and congratulations. Mr. Croto, clearly, listening to your bio, you have made a huge impact in every role that you've played within this district, and, you know, certainly on our teachers and students. So I'm definitely looking forward to your continued success in this new chapter. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
And I just want to say congratulations, welcome, and I'm sure you guys will do a great job. Thank you very much. All right, agenda item number 11, consideration of recommendations for administrative, excuse me, I've already got that. I passed that up. I wanted to do that again. Let's see, item number 12, consideration and possible adoption of a resolution ordering and authorizing all matters necessary for a bond election to be held on November 7th, 2017. If this resolution is so adopted, the deadline for submitting arguments with respect to it is August 11th, 2017 at 5 p.m. Mr. Hicks?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Darwin Stifler, community and colleagues, I'm pleased again to be up here to present our Citizens Bond Advisory Committee report. See if this works. So first, start with what our purpose was. Is per our governing board policy, as mentioned at a meeting about a month ago, the governing board is to use input from a citizens committee in determining the needs of the district. And so back on April 13th, the governing board approved an item that would create this. And so the recommendation coming from that agenda item was 4 things. One, recommend if a bond election should be held on November 2017. Recommend if that is yes, how much is in the bond election. And then also ensure that this was not actually in the presentation, but what we heard from the governing board unanimously was to ensure that it's for the entire district and not just one part of the district. And then this was my interpretation, which was to make the recommendation by May 11, 2017 for deadlines of actually putting together an election and working with the Maricopa County Elections Department. The committee membership was 10 members, 5 selected by board members and 5 coming from the boundary committee. The boundary committee is where we heard a lot of either people coming to governing board meetings and speaking, or it was actually their recommendation to go forward with another bond in November 2017. And so we have Mr. Seha, Mr. Guttridge, Mr. Malnar, Mr. Johnigan, Ms. Olson. I actually just noticed there's a typo. Sorry, it's Ms. Lombardi. Ms. Moot, Ms. Gerritsen, Mr. Herron, and Ms. Kirschbaum. And so I think I see lots of the people here, so if you're on the committee, if you could please stand, be recognized. This was no easy task, so we started out just going over. I love to talk to everybody about school finance, and I'll layer in my little editorial comments here or there, so they listened to that. They listened to the previous bond recommendation, what that was, looking at some of the previous bond detailed requests, review the bond and tax rate implications from the previous bond and what that was. We had 3 meetings and 1 site tour of 2 schools. We tried to provide responses, so we encouraged the members to make questions or provide some questions and trying to answer those in a timely manner. We posted everything on the website, and as you know, this is a board committee, which requires that it's open to the public, and so our meetings were all open to the public. We discussed tons and tons of factors, so there was a lot of discussion. My guess, they probably wouldn't like this, but we probably could have gone on for hours and hours every single meeting. I think it's good dialogue as people are sharing and asking and questioning, poking it a little bit here and there. But we discussed the failure of the previous bond, what impact that has, the concern of the transparency of need, how much is really needed, and actually even compare and contrast that with what was spoken at the 2012 bond, and trying to be as complete transparent as possible. Discuss the boundary changes impact, what other ballot measures could impact on an election, either previous or future. The capital lawsuit, so that was dropped on May 1st, and how does that impact? Discuss the Arizona School Facilities Board, even in such that the more we submit to them or they set up, we went into great detail about some of their challenges. Discussed community conversations and perceptions, the speed, the decision, how quickly we're moving, the options, the alternative. These are, and when I say discussed, it's neither positive nor negative. There's just lots of comments about it, both pro and con. Discuss options and alternatives, discuss the growth, discuss the economy, discuss debt concerns, discussed even splitting up a bond into multiple authorizations. And so the goal was to come up with a recommendation really quick, but I wanted the opportunity for everybody to ask anything, and we talked about anything. There was nothing off base. And so hopefully I do try to, one of my roles, I believe, is to, I'm looking at the community members that are on this committee and making sure that they feel comfortable to say anything or they could ask anything. And so hopefully my cues from them was that they did feel that way, and so hopefully they did feel that way. Only they could tell you that, but it seemed like we were there. We did have to come to a vote, and so during the process, going back to those four questions, going back to the question, so just I'm going to walk through what our recommendation was that was voted on, and it was yes to a November 2017 election. So it was not unanimous. This was a 7-3 vote. There were other conversations about, hey, I would be willing for a different vote, a different election, a different time. We didn't vote on that officially, but there were comments, and that was put into the minutes, so that was captured in our minutes. The $198 million bond measure, same amount as last year, but there are a few changes. And so looking at the items list, one is that as we're reviewing some of the items, the dollar amount put in for a high school last year was a little high. We were using the Agua Fria model. That is the most expensive high school being built in the history of Arizona, and so maybe modeling after the most expensive high school in Arizona is probably not the best idea. So we actually moved that down. So in that dollar amount from the high school from last year, you'll see a change. What was added was the second elementary. So as that moved down, we had a second elementary move down. So we discussed a proposal of maybe looking at $179 million, but the thought was no, push it back up. Let's put 2 elementaries, because some of the comments, and I'm paraphrasing, that we heard was the lack of planning. How do we get ahead of things? We should probably be asking for that and get out in front of some of those growth in those elementary schools. So there are a few changes. So it was not just take the previous bond program and just copy and paste it. We did look through it and some of the changes. There was some concern that we should continue going down line by line, and I'll get into a process to address that. But this vote was 6, 2, and 1. You can notice we did have one member drop-offs. So that only adds up to 9, even though 10 members were on the board. One person had to leave in between the votes. The second or the third recommendation is that any project that's on the that's going from the 2017 bond that is eligible for SFB funding, so our School Facilities Board funding, needs to be submitted to the SFB first. And so that is to create a process that prior to we fund the project out of a 2017 bond sale, is that project must be identified, and we should need to contact the SFB liaison and then submit it through their channels. Now this, just to be transparent in this, it does say if it's eligible, it needs to be submitted. Timing with the School Facilities Board is a big concern. And so if they come back, so for example, we have 3 projects with them. We started in October, we got a purchase order in March, and we still haven't done any of the work yet. Probably the actual construction after evaluation will be about a year in process. Some of these projects may not have that time, but the goal is that they have to be submitted to the SFB and at least come back to the committee and tell them the report of what the SFB says at that time. They might say this doesn't qualify, or they might do an outright no, or they might say, yeah, we might fund that. So if you put more information, get the quotes, go forward, we would talk through the process with the committee. And the committee I'm referencing is the next item, which is to create.
Can I interrupt you on that? So let's say it was a critical need, the kind of thing that SFB comes through for, right? So let's say we had to move ahead on something that was very important and urgent, that couldn't wait. So let's say we acted on that, and then we submitted it to the SFB, and they, months later, came back. Could we be reimbursed for that?
Madam President, members of the board, maybe. They have an emergency program, so they have the ability up to a certain threshold that the executive director can just approve, and then it's ratified by their board. If it meets those qualifications, then yes, it will be paid for and expedited in that sense. Probably where the biggest concern, if it's a compressor in the water main break or something to that effect, they move really quickly if it's eligible. My biggest concern is, for example, we have a school right now, we're in the middle of a roofing project, and in the middle of it, we looked and we saw that one of the beams has water damage. Contact the SFB, and they said, oh yeah, that looks like something we would cover. We have stopped that project, and so the roof is not getting done, and we're probably a month into working with the SFB right now to get the quotes and get that beam done. And so right now, the facilities department is asking, hey, this project could now cost more money because we're delaying so long with the roof because we still haven't heard back from the SFB. Those are the type of things that we will have to bring with the committee to talk about those decisions. And that decision would have to be made by what I'm referencing as the Bond Oversight Committee that would verify the projects prior to the sale of the bond. And so we're looking at creating a system that would have a bond oversight committee. It is somewhat unique. It's not completely unique. I think I've heard of stories of a district or two that has some level of a bond oversight committee. We would create a committee here in the district that would, prior to going to the governing board, so in June 8th, you'll be seeing an agenda item to sell some bonds, and we put in there what is it for. Prior to coming to that governing board meeting when we're going to request an authorization to sell bonds, we would go to the committee to verify every single project that's in there. So if we're going to say sell $20 million of bonds, we would have a list of every project that's going to be funded by it. We would go to the Citizens Advisory or the Citizens Oversight Committee and review in detail. We would start that process probably in March, finish it hopefully in April. So it'd be an annual meeting for just a couple months. And then before we come to the governing board, we would bring that bond oversight recommendation to the governing board during the sale of the bond.
Mrs. Pingarelli? Since the projects that the bond would cover go in the voter pamphlet, isn't that already pretty much established what the bond would cover? It seems to me that this oversight committee might be superfluous.
Madam President, members of the board, the bond pamphlet that goes into the bond pamphlet that the voters are voting on is in very general. It uses very general categories. And so this provides an additional layer of detailed oversight and transparency that would help with the governing board, help make that determination if we should sell these bonds. Okay. It wasn't directly what the committee was talking about, but as you heard lots of their comments and concerns, it seemed like a good model that if we input this model in, it requires more planning up front. But we put the planning in, we get the blessing. I think it would be very beneficial. Some of the concerns that I would have is that as we're talking through a bond, you could sell them up over 10 years. You could then, after you sell that last bond in 10 years, you could hold it for 3 years. You're talking 13 years down. Now, we would not be in that situation. But in the most extreme case, is what was originally talked about 14 years ago the most pressing need 14 years later? This would allow some modifications in that oversight committee would then review to make sure it still meets the legal definition and then make the recommendation to the board.
And clearly your committee was in favor of it.
Yes.
Thank you.
The additional recommendations, so those were the 4 general questions, but we continued with a few. And one is to continue the work of the Bond Advisory Committee work and through June 16th. Part of that is to continue a detailed review. And so one of the things we learned is we asked our bond attorney, which was, is May 11th the drop-dead date? And May 11th is an accelerated because we don't have a meeting, the second meeting in May. So we could be delaying this. And when we talked to our legal counsel, they said, actually, you have up until, based on our governing board schedule, June 22nd, to actually rescind so we can continue forward. I have to let the county elections department know we're going for it so they could start their work and start prepping their work. But we can make modifications so that 198 can go up, it can go down, or it can be completely pulled off altogether up through June 22nd. And so we were thinking, well, let's continue our work as a bond advisory committee and start bringing in people and experts to continue to look at what was on the list and where is going forward so that we feel comfortable in that sense. And this would provide us 3 additional meetings to do that. And so that's also part of the recommendation. Just in summary, the $198 million bond is land and new construction for 1 high school, 2 elementaries, and a Peoria traditional school. So it does have a solution in there for that. Some transportation, Peoria or Performing Arts Center renovations, district-wide site improvements, district-wide building improvements, district-wide technology, and district-wide equipment across. So very similar in nature to last year's, but there are some changes. And I will stand for questions or let our community.
Actually, yeah, I'd like to, we have several people here that would like to speak this evening. So I would like to take their comments first, Mr. Hicks, before the board opens up for discussion.
Of course.
So just to remind you, we have several people, I think, about at least 12. So there will be a 3-minute time limit, and I'd appreciate if, I know it's, everybody has a lot to say, but if you could keep it within the 3 minutes. The first person is Annette McCarty-Abraham. Thank you.
Hello there, board members and Dr. Stifler. I'm Annette McCarty-Abraham. I'm also president of the Peoria United Parent Council. So I receive, have a lot of conversations with friends and families in the district where I'm kind of the, hey, do you know what's going on in the district girl? So I wanted to kind of share one conversation I had with another parent. Their family moved about 5 years ago from the East Coast. And so when they were purchasing a home, it was recommended that they move to Peoria because of the schools. They had family. And she's an executive at PetSmart, the location over there off I-17 at the corporate headquarters. And so she bought in the district, and things have been great. What's unfortunate is now PetSmart executives are telling new families moving, hey, you should go to another community. You should go east. Don't go to Peoria. It's overcrowded. It's going downhill, those types of things. And I'm like, the eyes get big, and you're trying to explain, it's a great district. We're working through the growing pains. 20 years ago, my husband and I relocated here with Nestle. And we didn't have kids yet, but we knew a good school district is what you looked at, because either we need it for the kids or we need a good school district for market value and resale of a home. So in either case, it's a good proposition. So I'm telling you these stories because I want the board to think about the big picture. And all of the factors that the bond committee came up with and all those discussions, they put a lot of thought in, and I know each of you, whether you were there live or watching online, saw the school boundary information from parents, how passionate they were. So I wanted you to think about the growing economy, educating our children to be placed in those new jobs, how important that is, and that Peoria needs to be able to attract great companies and their families. So we want those businesses to proudly recommend Peoria. We want them to proudly recommend Peoria Unified School District, so that, and all of the innovative education that we heard about tonight, whether it's MET, whether it's any of our programs here in our schools. And as leaders, I want you to just plan, accommodate for the future growth in our city. And please vote yes to put the bond on the ballot in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jennifer Kirchbaum, and the speaker after that would be Mary Klein, so she can get ready.
Thank you. President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. I'm here this evening to support the forward movement of a bond election. In 2017, I'm here as a parent, a community member, a businesswoman, but more importantly, I'm here as a supporter of public education and of the Peoria Unified School District. I feel that as a unified school district, and I really want to stress the unified part, we need to stand together and support our children and do everything possible to promote and protect their education, and also to ensure that they're receiving a quality education in a safe and positive environment. I want to take a moment to talk about the amazing students that we met earlier, specifically the kids from Lake Pleasant, who I had the honor of seeing firsthand how they learned and they grew in the TLC program and during Skills USA. To some, the Skills USA program or the Skills USA Challenge may seem small and insignificant, but to these students, it was a way to be exposed to and excel in a facet of education that they may not otherwise have available to them. If we do not have the space, the technology, or the funding for these programs, the students would not have the opportunity to learn these new skills, to bond with their classmates, to compete, and to feel pride in what they have accomplished. The city and the district is growing. Annette just touched on that, and I want to expand on it a little bit. There's no question about the growth. Families will not move into a school district that has overcrowded classrooms, little or outdated technology, and excessive repairs needed that can cause harm to their children. Families will, however, move into a district and bring their taxpayer dollars and their votes with them to a district that shows that they support the children and do what is necessary to provide safe and encouraging campuses where our children can learn and grow. These are also the same children that will one day be caring for us and will contribute to the success of our society. I am more than happy to pay for a fire department even if my house never burns down. I'm more than happy to pay for a police force even if I never get robbed. And I'm certainly more than happy to pay a few extra dollars a month, maybe give up a couple cups of coffee in order to support our children. At the end of the day, I truly hope that we are all in this together and that not one of us wants to shortchange our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mary Klein, and following will be Julia Smock.
Good evening, President Pingarelli, members of the board, and Dr. Stifler. After serving 22 years in the military, I'm often asked what brought us to Peoria, Arizona. We have absolutely no family here whatsoever. I can promise you it was not the golf. It was our school district. We could have chosen anywhere, but we picked here. While I'm thankful for our amazing resources, I'm disheartened because I stand here fighting for what I feel like is so important for our district. You cannot deny the growth in our wonderful city. In 2012, 790 building permits were issued for our city. 2013, 905. 2014, 1068. It continues to go up. In 2016, there were 1,640, and in the first quarter of 2017, we're at a 25% increase over last year. You can't deny rock-solid numbers. Where's our foresight? If you're not for this bond, I'd love to hear your plan for accommodating all of these projected students who deserve the best. Busing kids one school south is not getting us anywhere. It's just a Band-Aid over a bigger problem. Look at the numbers. Are we going to give the excuse of we don't want to raise taxes? Do you really know how much that would cost you personally based on your home? I do. I'm willing to give up that extra $15 a month it's going to cost me to show my children that I support them. Our schools need repair. Rebar's exposed in some schools. There's schools that don't have drinking fountains that work. We're going to end up with kids sitting on top of kids. I was a teacher in Utah, and I taught in a classroom where I didn't have enough books for my students nor enough desks, and that school district told us that was just the way it was going to be. It was horrible to me. I don't want my kids to have to deal with that. Let me tell you a little bit about my graduating senior. And I'm not doing this to brag. I want to show you what comes out of our district. He's a perfect 4.0 student. He successfully completed 34 honors courses. 12 of those were AP. He scored 2 4s on AP exams. The rest of them were 5s. He'll have over 64 credits that can transfer to college. He accepted admission into the Honors College at Villanova for a major in astrophysics. He's received multiple scholarships totaling over $100,000. He volunteered over 200 hours over the course of his high school career, including at his own school. He was awarded the Marine Corps Scholastic Excellence Award as well as department awards for math and social studies. He's the class valedictorian. He didn't come out of the charter school up the road. He came out of our school district, and I'm so proud of that. Our kids coming out are going to be the next Peoria City Fire Chief, the next lead chef for a world-class restaurant, or the next rocket scientist. Don't shortchange them. Warm weather, sunny skies, and great temps will only bring so many people back to Arizona. Will my son ever come back? I don't know. You fund what you value, so here's your chance to show me and thousands of other parents what you do value.
Thank you. Here is Julia Smock, and following would be Frank Eger.
Good evening, President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. The Peoria School District has a history of reaching out to parents and patrons to advise on numerous issues, including boundaries, open-closed campuses, block scheduling, junior highs, middle schools, bonds, and overrides. As a board member for 12 years, a parent of PUSD students for 15 years, and a community member for more than 30, I have seen the benefit of such committees, helping the board to understand the attitudes and opinions of the Peoria school community. You created a boundary committee, and that committee included the need for a bond election as part of its recommendations to you. You have created a Citizens Advisory Committee to look into the issue of going out for another bond, and they have recommended to you that a bond issue should be on the 2017 election ballot. I was a member of the 2012, 2015, and 2016 Bond Advisory Committees. Each of those committees agreed that a bond was necessary as well. In 2012, the need for new schools in the future was apparent, but the committee decided to recommend only repairing, replacing, and renovating was in order because the needs were so great, the result of the legislature's failure to provide adequate capital funding. In 2015, the Citizens Advisory Committee was tasked with looking into both a bond and an override. The committee recommended an override only, again because the legislature's failure to provide adequate maintenance and operation funding, even though there was no doubt that a bond was still necessary. Most of the committee members agreed to continue serving into the next year to make recommendations again regarding a bond. In 2016, the CAC recommended a bond election again. The need was still obvious. Unfortunately, that bond failed, and I have to say the first time a bond failed in the district since the late 70s. And here we are again. Nothing has changed to cause any of you to vote against a bond election this year. Your current advisory committee has made the recommendation to you again. Why in the world wouldn't you follow that recommendation? I attended approximately an hour of the last meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee, and I'll end with this comment. The suggestion was made by at least one member that the district has not been completely open and transparent about funding needs, expenses, and the impact of not having new money for new buildings and repair of existing buildings. That is utter nonsense, and such a statement does a great disservice to the employees of the district who work so hard to make the district the tremendous success it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank?
Madam President, esteemed members of the board, Dr. Stifler, I come today as the Vice President of the Peoria Education Association. We'd like to encourage your support going for the bond this coming year. I know many would say that the schedule's tight, but we feel that's something the district needs to do for the current and future students. The money is needed to help with our district to continue to grow. It'd be nice if the state would help, but as a district, we must look to do what is needed ourselves. I know our members will do their best to support this bond. I know the community will be there supported as well because they now see how it is needed. I feel we hold off on this item. No schools will be built up north, and we'll have a charter school that will move up in that area. We already have 3 up there right now, and we'll add another one. And I know, Ms. Connect, you love driving by the one every day right up the road here from the district office. The demand is there. People will go for that. I'm a graduate of Foothills Elementary School and Cactus High School. My parents, when my dad retired from the Marine Corps, he wanted to settle back in Arizona because we were Arizona natives. And he listened to home builders back in the late 80s and said this would be a great district to put your kid in. So parents chose this place. I grew up exactly a 5-minute walk from Cactus and Foothills. And that's where I spent my life. I went off to ASU and I decided to become a teacher. And the district that reached out to me was this district. And I can think of no other better place to come and teach and give back to what so many people did for me prior in my high school education career. And I think it'd be a disservice if we do not do this. I can't state enough how much it is needed. I know people have said look for alternative funding, but I have ran a small little operation for 15 years at my high school, trying to get the community to help give me money so I can put on an event, to give money back to a charity group. And I struggle with that myself. No one's going to be giving us money. We have to do it ourselves. And as you can hear from the community that's out here now, they're very much supporting this. It's $15. In fact, now I have a son next year who's going to come to the best high school, which is Sunrise, in my opinion. And he'll be coming there. And I want him to have the best opportunities I had, and for the 20 years of the kids I have taught in this district. And it would be a shame if it's voted no. A horrible shame. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Will Briggs, followed by Eva Oscuna.
Good evening, Governing Board. I've had a chance to work with several of you, with Kathy Knecht and Beverly Pingarelli, on committees here in the district. But the rest of you don't know me. I'm a proud graduate of Copperwood Elementary School, go Chargers. And I'm the proud parent of 4 children who are attending elementary and high school in our district. I just wanted to raise a couple of points that, from my point of view, seem pretty salient. In 2016, the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, Arizona Chamber of Commerce, Arizona Commerce Authority published a study from 400 Arizona CEOs. And in that survey, those CEOs cited education as their top concern, specifically worried about state and local investment in K-12. Certainly, this is an issue that has impact on our students today and our students in the future, and all of the adults who work in this, who are in this room and work in this area. Speaking as a business professional, I'm a human resources executive, and I've had the opportunity to work with companies looking for new locations to locate a business or a plant or an operation somewhere. And one of the top concerns in that exercise is the availability of good labor talent immediately and good labor talent in the future, and the ability of the area to draw new families to that area. If we hope to draw companies like Intel, Apple, Raytheon, to name a few, like the East Valley has done, Peoria Unified School District will have to make that same investment to have a situation that is stable, inviting, and encouraging the families to locate here. Nothing drives away a company more than a perception of an area in crisis. Certainly, we've heard other people make comments tonight about the relatively low cost about what a bond might be for them. For some families who are fortunate enough to live in a very nice part of the neighborhood, they'll be spending upwards of $10 to $20 on the bond, but most families will spend a single Starbucks coffee cup per month. Seems pretty low. I also happen to work for a bank that works with all sorts of different customers, but includes charter schools and private schools. I would like to remind the board and the public that charter schools and public schools take on debt. They take on a lot of debt. The idea that debt is ugly and is something to be avoided at all costs is hogwash. It's something that needs to be done to make investments. Our business community leaders know that we need to do that, and I encourage you to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Eva.
I don't know if it's going to come down. Okay. Good evening, President Pingarelli and members of the board. My name is Eva Osuna. I'm a lifelong Peoria resident. I'm a 1974 Peoria High School graduate and a retired special ed teacher. I live in South Peoria. I volunteer in the district. I make donations to the Peoria schools, and I'm a chairman of a nonprofit organization, the Olivia O. Delgado Angel Fund, that awards educational scholarships to Peoria graduates. I've always trusted the governing board to vote in the best interest of students and education, occasionally having differing opinions on various issues. But make no mistake, I support and believe in education and in the Peoria School District. I learned about the special bond election from board member Monica Martinez, but I'm disappointed for such a short notice was given literally a couple of days ago. I heard about this. I did my due diligence. I called the district office. I inadvertently reached the chief financial officer and inquired about the bond. I asked, where do I get this information about the bond? I was told, you attend the board meetings. I said, okay, where else can I find this information? On the web. I searched on the web under layers and layers and layers of information. Thankfully, I have a school board member that feels that I, as her constituent, deserve to know what is going on. In speaking with friends and neighbors, we feel the areas that warrant moving a bond election at such a fast pace would have to include needs in infrastructure, technology, and maintenance. Perhaps I'm not reading the data correctly. Thus, the bond information and clarification should have been provided to the public. That is my concern, that the information is not getting to the public. At least the people that I'm speaking to, it's not there. And so I'm afraid that we're going to see the same thing happen. This bond is going to get voted down like last year because the information is not there. That is my biggest concern. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dick Turbush. And sorry not to give you warning, Mr. Turbush.
Sort of like it in the wheelchair. I can hide back here in case anyone wants to throw anything at me. I promise you I'll be short and sweet tonight, but most of the people know me here in the audience are probably laughing right now when I said that. But the 3-minute timeline sort of bottles me in on that. But there's not much more I can say that hasn't been said by the people supporting the bond election that spoke before me. A couple things I'd like to highlight: that the district's always been progressive and ahead of the game in their planning and their pre-planning and their planning for the district, for academics as well as buildings and structures, et cetera. And that's why the need for the bond election is more now than ever has been, and should be definitely considered, and hopefully the governing board will vote yes to have a bond election this coming November. A couple of points I'd like to pass or point out and provide some information on. Talking about the need for the bond, we're talking about the entire district. The massive remodeling and renovations in a district this size that accumulate year after year after year and so forth needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed in a timely manner, which the district's been good on, and this is what I've mentioned on their planning and so forth in the past, as well as looking at the need for construction in the northern part of the district, the new school areas. If we passed this vote tonight and we had a bond election in November coming up in 2017, we wouldn't be able to open a school, be that a high school or an elementary school, until the fall of 2019 for the 1920 school year. You wait a year, that's going to be 2021, and you're also going to put off the renovations and remodeling and so forth that needs to take place in the district. Also, when you think about passing a bond to the tune of $200 million, and Ken, he's told me many times before that I'm incorrect, but the district is not impacted by the approval of that election until those bonds are sold. So if you sell $22 million in 2018, then the district's tax rate is impacted accordingly. If you don't spend any of that money until 2021, or part of that money, the district's not impacted because they didn't spend it. There's no tax impact until the district spends that money. So if children quit moving into the north part of the district and you held off on building that school for 6 months or a year, there's no impact to the district tax-wise. Meanwhile, the renovations and remodeling and so forth that needs to take place are still there. Now, I live in the north part of the area here, not in the district, but in the north part of the area. And it's growing like mad, and it's not going to stop, and those new schools are going to be necessary. We all know that the remodeling, the more you put it off. And my 3 minutes are up, and I promised I'd be short and sweet. Please vote yes.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jerry Thude, followed by Jan Ogino.
Madam President Pingarelli and members of the board, I don't think there's any need to explain the dire need for this bond to go through. Everyone has come up here and discussed the need of our schools. And your votes yes last year tell me that you know that too. My concern for this bond is the comment about where the money is going and what schools are getting to see this money. I'm a very logical and rational person. My logic tells me that we need to look at where this money is going specifically. As somebody raised from a family with absolutely no financial literacy whatsoever, I am very proud to say that I've taught that to myself and my children. So I look at this money and say, we need to be responsible with this. We need to know where this is going. But I can't help but have my emotion overcome my logic. Bonds typically come out every 5 years. So as a parent from the North, with logic aside when it comes to my children, if the North is not counted in this bond, I'm afraid for my children that we won't be heard again until 5 years later. Now, my logic tells me that the South must feel the same. You're afraid for your children. You're afraid if you're not counted this time, when will your children be counted too? The South needs to be heard as well. There are repairs that are needed. There are buildings falling apart. There are rebar exposed. I would be afraid to send my child to school in that condition, nor would I buy a house in an area with those conditions, and these children should not have to go to school in those conditions. However, in the North, we are overwhelmed with the amount of families who want to come join Peoria. And so our children are on the verge of having to be bussed away from their homes and their friends, having to sit on a bus for 45 minutes in the morning to go to a different school than where choice gave us an option. I chose to put my family in the North as I grew up in a very bad school district where I watched peers murdered on the front of our school. I will never have my children live the life that I lived. I grew up on a fixed income with a special needs child. I worked hard to make sure that they never have to do that. And every family works hard to make sure that their children should not have those things. For example, Oakwood Elementary. That building is 31 years old. It is severely outdated, and these kids deserve more. Dollar for dollar, though, North and South, I have to tell you, I was proud to come to Peoria, and now I'm slightly ashamed. Dollar for dollar is not going to work, and it's not logical. But every one of these kids should be valued and shouldn't feel segregated between the two sides of the district. I urge you to vote yes for the bond, but in a manner that values every child in the district. And it may not be equal, but every child has an equitable share in this bond and should be noticed and recognized. But I ask that you vote yes, because these kids need it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jan Ogino, followed by Ray Connolly.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Stifler, I'm not going to reiterate what everybody else is saying. We definitely need money. We definitely need a bond. We are all speaking to the choir here. So I want to say that I support a bond. I'm not necessarily in support of a bond in 2017 because our need for money and our need in our schools don't necessarily come because we don't have a bond. It becomes because we have a broken system, a terribly broken system that we can't fix just with the bond. So I'm a student of politics, and I am feeling that 2017 for this bond is too soon. Every momentum, I mean, I pay attention to the momentum of the political waves, and it's all happening in 18. Everything is happening in 18. No one's going to be looking at a 2017 election, at least not the people we need to support this bond. We are all in here, and we were going to vote for a bond. I've paid, last year, because my husband and I own a business, we paid $40,000 in taxes. Another $15 isn't going to kill me. That's not the point. The point isn't the amount of money. The point is we need to win. This is an election, a bond election. We need to win. I'm just not sure we can win it in 2017 after we tried twice. I'm feeling we need a little breather, a little break, and we need to dialogue with the side that might not be willing to support the bond and try to convince them that this is something we need as a community. Because we haven't dialogued, maybe that's what our problem is. So I would like to say that I'm not in support of a bond, because I don't want it to be looked at as, I don't want this, therefore I'm going to be painted a certain way. I am very much for a bond. I'm probably the only person in my family that loves paying taxes. That's not the problem. My husband said, "You're the only person that's okay with paying $40,000 in taxes last year." I said, "Because I know what they pay for." I am very much for a bond. I just want to win this election, and I'm not so sure 17 is the year we're going to win it. I think we can win it in 18, because I think we can get enough. We don't have enough of a base. We need to broaden our base, and I think we can broaden our base in 18. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a different take on how I feel and what the political atmosphere might be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ray Conley.
Good evening, President Pingarelli, board members, Dr. Stifler. I'm the principal at Sunset Heights Elementary School, and my school was supposed to relieve some of the enrollment over at Park Ridge Elementary School and some of the other northern schools, which it did do, but now Sunset Heights is bursting at the seams, and we just got through a boundary committee, as you well know. I will have to say that the committee and all of the parents that were involved and got really involved and vocal understand now what it means that we did not pass the bond. So I believe that our community, the timing is right now, because the community gets it. They saw what happened, that we said no to a bond, and now they're going, oh, okay, we needed to pass that because we need more schools. The other thing that I want to mention is I've been in this district for 22 years, and the majority of my years in this district have been on the southern side of the district. And I can tell you from experience that while it's awesome to be at a new, beautiful, shining school, I know what it's like to be at a school that's 30 or more years old, and those schools definitely need the support of the district. We are not the Northern District and the Southern District. We are the Peoria Unified School District. All of our schools need something. The North needs schools for sure, and the South needs to renovate and to make sure that the schools are beautiful and shiny out there as well. So again, I really do think that the community where I'm from anyway right now, those people are excited and want to see a bond move forward so that we can do what's right for the students in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Rick Guttridge.
President Pingarelli, members of the governing board, Dr. Stifler. I'd like to thank Mrs. Sea Martinez and the governing board for allowing me to serve on the bond advisory committee to help assess whether we need a bond, special bond election this November. And I did a lot of work, as I think you guys know, on all the data that was provided to us. And my assessment was based on student enrollment projections, new spending requests, vis-a-vis the 2012 bond. We still have $50 million to spend there. The political risks, as Ms. Alguino alluded to, the political risk of an election in 2017, I think, are tremendous. And then there were other options that we could have looked at to alleviate overcrowding, and I don't think we spent enough time doing that. So I still have questions in all four areas, and for many reasons, I voted on the committee to delay the bond election until 2018. I've given my notes and my recommendations to Mr. Hicks, who did a great job on the committee. I don't know where Mr. Hicks is. Oh, there he is. Good job, Ken. It was fair, it was open, everybody had a chance to say what they wanted to say and things. So he did a good job on that. I do believe we need new money for addressing repairs, and I think we need new money for probably a new school, at least one new school. Unfortunately, this committee didn't have enough time to put together a bond proposal that was appreciably different than what we had on the election 6 months ago. And if you remember, that bond failed. I mean, it was overwhelmingly defeated just 6 months ago. And I don't think there's enough reason to believe that PUSD families have changed their perception of the state of things such that you'll convince enough of them to vote in favor of a bond in 2017. 6 months from now, I don't think there's going to be enough change in attitude to make that happen. So I think a 2017 bond risk is really high. If you lose in 2017, you're going to go back in 2018. The more people say no, the easier it is for them to continue to say no. So I agree with Ms. Ogino that perhaps waiting a while, giving you guys a chance to put together a better proposal that's more palatable to the voters is the wiser, safer course of action. And that is what I would advocate. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our last speaker on this topic is Misty Walden. Thank you.
Thank you, President Pingerelli, board members, and Dr. Stifler for having me. I come to you from pure, raw emotion. I'm very educated in the school district, being a social worker in a neighboring school district for a decade. I also built a home in Peoria District 3 years ago with my son being 4 years old, and for the option for him to go to this district because I love this district so dearly. I chose a certain school for him to go to because I wanted him in that specific school in a traditional setting. It's very important to me. And with that being said, where it was mentioned before that we haven't had the time, that it hasn't been a long enough time, there's only been 6 months, we will have Peoria on our side because parents have already seen what has happened because it did not pass last time. People have already started seeing changes because it did not pass last time. So with that being said, I don't want, and I'm very passionate about public education, working in public education for 10 years. I don't want to think about the option of moving my child to a charter school and taking more money away from the district. And I know, speaking to other parents, that other parents feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Hicks. Well, I will open it up to the board for comments and questions. Mrs. Knecht, would you like to start us out?
I do have some prepared comments that I'd like to read, but I want to thank everybody who spoke here tonight. I want to thank the committee members who put in their time and energy. And not just this committee, but previous iterations of the committees that I know that this committee relied on a lot of the work that had come before them, so I appreciate that. So we should be clear about what this vote really is. Tonight's decision is about whether or not this governing body will allow the citizens of the community to decide for themselves. We're not deciding. The community will decide for themselves whether or not to allow the district to sell bonds for new schools and vital projects in existing schools. Essentially, what we're talking about is, are we going to ask the community to in turn allow us to go out for a line of credit? If the decision is no, then we will be denying those citizens their right to use the most fundamental privilege in American society, their vote. I believe that this board should acknowledge that the needs are many and they are real, and that delaying an election only makes those needs greater and the costs of addressing them higher. To knowingly increase future costs to the district is fiscally irresponsible. Already, we have had to put families and children through a difficult and emotional boundary adjustment due to severe overcrowding in some of our northern schools. Putting off the construction of new schools means that the chances of us putting them through that again is even greater. The board should acknowledge that our citizens own the buildings in this school district, and that without funding to keep them safe and maintained, that those assets, our assets, that we all share, will most certainly decline in value, along with the marketability of our neighborhoods and our own property values. The thought of having to direct funds to emergency capital needs that might otherwise go to teacher salaries makes me ill. I acknowledge that it is unfortunate that local property taxpayers must take on the responsibility that the state has shirked, despite its constitutional obligation. But the state has. And so, if we want our schools to continue to be the jewels in the crown of the city of Peoria and the city of Glendale, to be the hubs of our neighborhoods that make us proud, then we as a community must stay together and say so. Our ethical obligation is to do what is best for the school district, for the students, the families, and the taxpayers who count on us to maintain quality facilities and instruction that they deserve. I take the code of ethics that we signed very seriously. I have confidence in Mr. Hicks, in our staff members, and in the board members to continue to monitor the tax rate and keep it manageable for our community members like they have as long as I've been on this school board. I strongly support going out for a school bond in November of 2017.
Thank you. Mrs. Doan?
Mr. Hicks, how much money is left for repairs from the 2012?
Madam President, members of the board, there's $54 million left to be sold. I don't know our balance today, and some of that is for transportation. So if I had to guess, if you're not going to hold me to it, and I just say off the top of my head, I would say 45 million. Actually, let me back. 9 million is for a solar project, so I would say 36 million.
All right, why do we have dangerous conditions if there's that much money left?
We try to balance everything. I think everybody's interpretation of dangerous conditions is there. The projects you're talking about that have rebar, those are currently in SFB's hands. So we will, unless the board tells me to sell bonds to do that, to solve that, we're working through the SFB in that situation.
So those projects are under consideration and being...
We're working through the school facilities board process.
Those are not dependent on a current bond, on a new bond.
Madam President, members of the board, they can be. If the board is directing and say, go out and spend 36 million tomorrow, we'll sell 54 million
I mean,
this
they're
summer,
not dependent on a 2017 bond election.
Madam President, members of the board, some of the items that were identified tonight are working through the school facilities board process.
Right.
We could stop that at any time, and if the board says sell 54 million in bonds and do everything tomorrow, we'll do everything tomorrow. Our tax rate would shoot through the roof, and so we have to try to balance
Right.
it. We don't think that's appropriate for our schools, and so we try to prioritize everything.
Okay, all right. I do feel we definitely need a bond. I think that we have not had enough time with this one. We went out last time right after the override and asked for the bond, and we got slapped down. My concern is We didn't have enough time to go through this thing, to consider everything. This was very rushed. And our community members don't just consist of the parents that were impacted by this boundary change we had to make. There's a lot of people in our community that were not affected that don't care about that. I'm sorry. This is our children we're talking about. We need to make sure that when we go for this bond, it'll pass. We need time to talk to our legislative districts, to get people on board, because a lot of people will not be on board for this thing. Right now, I do talk to a lot of people in the community. I'm worried about that. We have to have the bond for the new building, for further. We need more information, though, and I believe that we need to find a better way to disseminate to the public what the bond is for than just saying we need renovations and we need new buildings. I think we need to make sure the public gets all the information. I was speaking to some people last night, and they were like, well, where can I find this? I said, well, it's on the website. And they were just like, they're not going to go on the website. How many things are we requesting for in the new bond that we also requested for in the old bond?
Madam President, members of the board, we've done our best to scrub out that if it's being funded in the new, then it was not in the 2012 bond.
Okay. Because there were some line items that I looked at that looked like they were doubles for the same thing.
Yeah. Madam President, members of the board, we've taken out everything we can. As we do additional things in the new bond, in the 2012 bond, they come out of the 2017 bond.
And
that's also the purpose of the Bond Oversight Committee, would also have an ability to stop that.
I was very glad to hear about a Bond Oversight Committee, because this thing is big. I mean, it's nearly $200 million. There needs to be a real guardianship there. And I believe that they could be handled wisely, and we do. I believe that the committee, the Citizens Bond Advisory, needs more time. I don't believe that they need to move quite this quickly. I believe that our district will be able to handle this thing in 2018. Saying that, I know it's going to be hard. I know that, however, we need to do what's best for the entire community, our children, our families, and everybody else. And this debt, yes, it doesn't happen all at once, but yes, we're accruing debt faster than we can pay for it. And it will accrue to future generations. Our children will be paying for this when we're dead. So I think we need to be very wise. I think that it doesn't behoove us to act in haste. I believe the bond would pass in 2018, and I believe that we'll have time then to speak and dialogue with the people that would knee-jerk vote no right now. So that's where I stand with it.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hicks, our current boundary, or redistricting of the district, if you will, that we just went through, it is to really kind of be a Band-Aid for approximately 3 years. Is that correct?
That was the intent. Obviously, any Madam President, members of the board, it's all based on projections. Everything can change, either going up or down. But yes, that was the intent, was to solve an overcrowding situation.
And again, it's it takes approximately maybe a little over 2 years to build an elementary school or high school, maybe a little longer in high school.
Madam President, members of the board, yes, a high school would probably take, I would say, I like to use round numbers, and when we're constructing, I round up, so it's 2 and 3 is what I would normally use.
Gotcha. So if we were to wait, a year to go out for this bond, I mean, that would put us pretty close to that, I'm going to use the word expiration, but that's probably not the right word, of this redistricting of the district, meaning we could potentially have to move kids again in the time frame that it may take to build a school if we wait a year.
Madam President, members of the board, potentially, yes, depending on how many students come and where it goes. We look at it all the time and on a regular basis, so that could definitely be a scenario.
Okay, so here's where I'm at. I don't take this seat lightly, and as I was voted into this role, I certainly was voted in to have an unwavering commitment, to our 37,000 students, for 4,000 teachers and staff. That said, as we take a look at, what our role is, as certainly a governing board and as a district, really is to uphold that promise of public schools, which is certainly high caliber teachers, rigorous curriculum, regardless of what zip code you live in. I know a couple of individuals, talked about, the southern sector and the northern sector of Peoria. For me, it's Peoria unified, and absolutely agreed, that way you need to ensure that, we are focused on our mantra, of certainly every student, every day, and upholding that tradition of excellence. With that said, I feel there is, a sense of urgency. There's certainly a narrative that's been established. I think as humans, we don't truly feel an impact until we are, faced with adversity or negatively impacted by a decision we have made. So that's it. I feel that I think there was a comment around those individuals who, said no before are still in that space. I feel that that has shifted, in light of the fact, that we had to redistrict the district. So that's it. I think the narrative's there, the sense of urgency is there. I think the call to action is, mobilizing these communities across the district to ensure, yes, that the communication is out there and that we are transparent and they fully understand, the impact, if we don't go out for a bond this year. So I'm 100% for moving forward with a bond election in 2017.
Thank you. Mrs. Monica Seahara Martinez.
Thank you, Mrs. Pingerelli. First, thank you for your time. I know how much time and sacrifice, family and friends participating in the committee and the conversations that you had with with the neighbors and attending the boundary committee conversation. So that is definitely noted. I myself as well take it very personal in regards to the decisions we make here on the governing board. I don't take it personally. I have received a ton of emails, and 100% come from up north. So I have to look at, as a governing member of 1 of 5 votes, of everybody who's invested in all the stakeholders. So receiving the best education Arizona can provide in the Peoria Unified School District, I did what I did best, what I do best, is to ask questions. And so I did, and I found a couple of things. But before I get to those questions and answers, I want to address the #1 question that was asked of me. So we'll start there. And there's 3 main ones, but we'll start with this one. I wasn't expecting it. And it was one email, and then a couple of them came in, and then people asked me and my peers. I have a different perspective because I was a teacher in this district for recently almost 10 years. Kids go here, special needs. I grew up here, my parents, and so on. But the question that came to me is, why did you choose Rick Guthridge? Mr. Guthridge is 1/10 of a committee. I am different, and he is different. He's had strong views against our public education system. I do not deny that. I trust you. I trust that our district administration would give the valid information and convince those who think like him. And for the first time in the history, or if not recently, we have a united Peoria Unified School District who believes in a community that needs a bond. And that gentleman out there doesn't agree with everything, and I don't even agree with everything with my husband. But we can all agree we need a bond, and I have never said anything different. I walked into LDs and argued that in 2016. I invited Mr. Kistner to present to the Southern community the importance of having a bond. And so that need is still there, and there is no denying that. So, now that I've addressed Mr. Guthridge, I appreciate his efforts and everybody else's efforts, but I too, as a new governing board member, was asked to ask questions, and I'm doing just that. Now, moving forward, another question that was asked was equity. And my statement, and re-watch the live streaming, so I appreciate community members continue to do that. I agree with you. Equitable does not mean equal. However, as a governing board member, we represent all 37,000 students. It is unrealistic expectation that our community pay capital expenditures dollar for dollar up north to down south. I get it. I have my MBA and I work for a large financial institution. That is not, we can't afford that. That's not realistic, but it's a starting point. And I got emails to have that conversation. And now we have the Northern discussing about the Southern needs, and that is important. And Mr. Riggs, you said, we take debt and we pay for things that are important to us. So I look at the list that was provided, that is public knowledge. And it is important to have a beautiful community, I get it. But I have a concern. A parent emailed me from Frontier that said, I don't need anything. And when there's $24,000 on this list for plants, and we have an awesome agriculture system at Peoria High School, why isn't that conversation happening? Why can't our students offer that type of service? So when we discuss equitable and equal, you're right. I will admit, we can't have it all. But then the discussion becomes, what is important to us? What are we going to spend our money on? There is a need in North Peoria. We are busting at the seams, and the growth is coming. So, another example of a comparison, apples to apples, Northern versus Southern, we are unified. I taught at Country Meadows, a Southern school, the farthest Southern school. So when I pick representation from the South, I'm thinking Southern. And like you guys asked me, why did I pick Mr. Guthridge? I would expect that you would ask every governing board member why they picked who they picked, and every legislator why they picked who they picked. Because going forward, we have tough decisions to make. Country Meadows and Coyote Hills, both schools I taught at, I love those kids. I taught with those teachers. They were built the same year, the same floor plan, with the same amount of kids. Coyote Hills has brand new carpet, brand new paint job, and a brand new security system. I was just at Country Meadows last Friday. They have pockets of brand new carpet, and that is it. That's what I'm talking about, the disparities. And I lived it, and I'm sharing with the community, it exists in our community. It's unfortunate, but we have to face it, and it may make you uncomfortable, but it is a discussion we have to have, and it is our 5 governing board members have the responsibility to look at this list, because when it's in the general ed fund, it's not a guarantee. It's at the discretion of our district administration, so we hold you accountable that all needs are met. And the last one, the biggest one of all. People ask me, and I say it out loud, where is the city in this conversation? And I will be the first one to admit, what is the 1-3-5-year plan? So I've been asking, where is the city in this conversation? And I found out a lot of information at this Peoria Institute leadership. They, when I say they, the city council is responsible but not as much as our city manager. City manager Carl Swenson has been in charge of development since 2006, and he will be retiring in July. There are 3 potential candidates. I urge all of you to do that research. Let me tell you their names. They are Julie Ayers, Susan Deladung, and Jeff Tyne. Those are the leadership that decide the development up north. And this issue is not going away. Like 30 years ago when my parents moved to Peoria, they had to deal with the growth. Fast forward 30 years, I'm sitting in this seat, and I am now dealing with this growth. Fast forward 30 years from now, and that projection that I received yesterday, in 2055, we will have 455,000 citizens in the city of Peoria. This is not going away. So making fast judgments on decisions that could impact a community, we need to be involving everybody, the city of Peoria, all areas, south, middle, and very top, because someday North Peoria, you're not going to be North Peoria. You're going to be South Peoria, and you're going to be asking in this governing boardroom for these renovations. And the north of the north, they're going to be asking for their new schools. And we're not divided, we're unified. So I have all these questions because I keep asking. I spent 4 hours. I met an awesome man, and they know their stuff. So when you talk about development, all your numbers, Mr. Hicks, your projections and Tyrell, they're on. No doubt about it. Those numbers, those students are coming because we have an awesome city. Mr. Adam Pruitt, Planning Division Manager. He has been part of Peoria since 2007, and his kids go here in our district. Write this down. He is currently asking feedback from our community to address the growth, and specifically how they're going to assess our relationship or our growth with PUSD. So you're gonna wanna go to www.planpeoriaaz.com. So if you want input, they are part of that conversation right now. The 135-year plan with this zoning area, all those permits, they were sold 10 years ago. We missed that conversation 10 plus years ago. The city cannot do anything about rezoning. On the good side, anybody can ask for an application to rezone an area. On the bad side, you have to have the blessing of the owner, and in this case, it's the development. That's not gonna change. So all of you mentioned permits. I saw emails with numbers and data, so I asked the city, what's going on with all these permits? They said, yes, all permits. They've been approved. I said, what's the time frame on the build on those permits? And they said, we have no forecast. We don't know. So those permits that were sold for the housing market that's going on right now, they were sold 10 years ago. And now we're dealing with this issue. So we have to take a look at all the data. What is in the best interest of our community? Southern, north now, southern later, north, north. Because we're gonna have a lot of people to answer to. You've heard of Arizona State Land Trust. Sound familiar, Prop 123? We have unintentional consequences, and I voted for that Prop 123, and I still stand by it. They have the liberty to sell the property to anybody. And as you heard, we have large land growth up north. So those developers are not going to walk away with all this free land to buy. We are going to have to deal with this again and again and again. Now, asking last night, we took it development area by development area. And the most students that were represented on here were 3,281 students, Lake Pleasant Heights. We need kids to have schools up there. But the question then becomes timing. I said, what's the forecast on that project? Have you ever heard of CAP? Central Arizona Project. There's no bridge, there's no development. The conversation on the bridge so people can live there hasn't even started. So yes, we do need a school, but it goes back to timing. We have to be responsible. Mr. Hicks, will you please share with the community where this special election money comes from?
From the district, the school district.
What bucket of money, please?
It's our decision. Traditionally, it's been out of, Madam President, members of the board, traditionally, we pay for it out of the M&O budget.
M&O budget. Maintenance and operation. I stand tall and strong for my teachers and my staff and my administration as we just approved a raise, a 1% raise. So if we approve this $250,000 special election, we're dipping into our teachers, our staff, and our administration's pocket of money for potential salary increases. I calculated we have roughly 4,000 employees. That's $62.50 each employee. It may not be a little, but when we're on crunch time, I agree. I heard from 100% of the community, they want to support our teachers, and they want to give our teachers a raise. No doubt about it. So why are we looking at a special election for not a guarantee for $250,000? Is that fiscally responsible? I looked at the data that was provided, and the conversation about, can we get this approved? And the community, 12,000 people said no. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. Out of the no, only these two little buckets, one right here, and Judy, way down here where you represent, they said yes. But everybody else said no. You had your chance in 2016. I'm not saying it's your fault, but then it goes back to, are we gonna ask our teachers to pay for this special election? I know Mr. Eager represents PEA. Mrs. Ogino is a teacher, she's on PEA. So you obviously don't represent all the teachers in our community. Not all of them live in our district, I respect that. But it comes down to timing, 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 and do we have all the data to make the right decision? The city of Peoria focuses on two revenue streams: retail and housing. Looking at economic growth, I'm so glad you guys brought that up. We have a smart community, I'll tell you that. Looking at economic growth. So I did some research, especially in my industry. I work for a big, large financial industry. And what defines economic growth? GDP, gross domestic product. And next year, Dr. Stifler will be talking about financial literacy for our students. But looking since 2014, the last quarter of 2014, GDP has gone down every quarter. And in the history of Arizona, we're susceptible to that economic situation. And when there is continued downturn on that GDP, there's a potential we could face a recession. And in Arizona, the first thing that hits is the housing market. So if we're gonna look at all the data, we must look at the economic situations we're dealing as a country, and as a state, and as a city. Are we making the best informed decisions? As a governing board, it's our job to do that research. Yes, it's important to have a committee, so I don't discount your work, but you asked me to ask questions as a governing board member, and I'm doing that. I know a constituent told me that she lives down south, and she said, you know, at one point, the down south, we were the new schools. It's now our turn to support the northern schools, and at the southern side, we'll get renovations. So then you ask, what is the priority of when this money is spent? So if we have dire need renovations to take place, it's at the back burner of the new school. So now we're putting our kids potentially in a risky situation while we're waiting for the State Facilities Board, and we know how fast government works. Slow. Trust me, I'm trying to get things done up here, and with our group, it takes a lot of work. No doubt about that. I agree we need a bond, but I am having a hard time being convinced that spending $250,000 out of our staff employee to go for a special election when our community said no. And in 2018, it's free. Well, is it $250,000?
Madam President, members of the board, it'll probably be about 200,000.
Okay, so we save 50,000. If we're saving penny to penny,
Madam President, members of the board, if I'm just making an estimate,
Okay.
it all depends on number of voters. I don't want to get too much down into
Yeah.
the weeds on the cost per voters of mail-in ballots versus
but there's
physical and
potential
stuff.
savings in the two costs.
Depending on how many other items will be on the ballot in other jurisdictions, it could savings, probably be a savings. The question is how much depends on how many other jurisdictions have questions.
And so you also bring up a good point, Mr. Hicks. What other measures are on the ballot? We ask how our city of Peoria can help us out. If we have two competing measures, just like in 2016, the community voted no across the board for the city of Peoria and Peoria Unified. If the city of Peoria truly supports Peoria Unified as their jewel in the community, they need to back down. Peoria Unified should be the priority. Mr. Briggs, you brought up the fact that companies move to cities for a great education system. Matter of fact, we look at the financial industry, insurance, and retail in the city of Peoria. That's their goal. So that we can have companies and have economic growth and jobs. Peoria Unified, as Mrs. Connect has said, is the largest employer in the city. So we're missing a lot of data. I don't doubt at all your numbers are wrong. I heard great things. And Mr. Terrell Harris, he's a jewel in our district. And they spoke very highly of him. And that partnership that we have with him and you in our district, in our city, it's important. What they told me is, the city of Peoria, is the developers go back to the Peoria Unified School District, and when they stamp the approval of the agreement, it then goes to the city for the final approval. If the developers and Peoria Unified do not agree, there is no deal. Granted, I understand, we cannot tell them what to do on their property, but there's some wiggle room. I just continue to ask questions and ask questions. And when we ask questions, we need to make sure everybody's part of that conversation. When you had the boundary committee, how many, for our advertising, did you guys mail out flyers?
I'm sorry, I wasn't part of the boundary committee.
So why did not, how come we didn't mail out flyers for the community for the bond?
Walked all the way up here. There's that. President Pingarelli, Mrs. Monica Ceja Martinez, it's actually a requirement of law that we notify all residents in our community, not just parents, that we may be making a change to their boundaries. We're following the letter of the law.
Okay, so you did that for the boundaries, and we don't have that same regulation for the bond?
Not for an advisory committee that you've convened to come together and have discussion.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I know our hands are tied in regards to what we can and cannot advertise when we go out for a bond. So a part of the presentation I was expecting to see was, where's the political action committee? Have that type of conversation?
It's a separate.
Senate members of the board, that's not part of, I will not be using district resources to work to support and pass a bond or override any of those measures on the ballot. So I cannot do that.
Okay, and I appreciate that clarification.
Madam President, members of the board, if I would do that, it would have to be my own time, and I would not be here on my time talking about it with you.
Okay, and the reason why we do a lot of things based on data, and so I hear a lot of the voices saying, yes, we're going to pass a bond, yes, we're going to pass a bond because of the northern side, but where's the data to support that? Because when I look at these maps, it's only a small portion, and they're not all the voters. I still have a lot of questions. Going through these line items, when I look at Liberty and Raymond S. Kellis built pretty nice schools to our district in regards to high school, why does Raymond S. Kellis have things done and Liberty doesn't? I know the list can be advised, but those are the types of conversations we need to have so that everybody's represented, the north and the south. At this point, I 100% agree with the bond. And as our governing board's responsibility is to look at the finances and all the factors dealing with it, our teachers, and one of them from PEA said we need a long-term plan.
And this is a short-term reaction to an immediate need, no doubt, but we need a long-term plan, and a 2017 bond is not the right choice.
Hi, Mr. Hicks. I just wanted to ask you on the items that you had provided. Do we get official quotes for all the major expenditures listed?
Madam President, members of the board, that's a great question. We go through a process where we use a lot of the sites to provide their own estimates or quotes. We do the official procurement once a bond is approved and we're actually going to make the purchase. So everything in there is pure estimates, and we relied on the sites to do, or the departments to do a lot of that work up front.
Okay, thank you. Well, I did want to thank the committee. I appreciate all of their hard work. I did hear a lot of good things about you, Mr. Hicks. I appreciate your chairing the committee. I just wanted to read, because I didn't want to misstate my thoughts. I believe that not all community stakeholders have been adequately represented in this process. The only Hispanics on the bond committee is Mr. Ceja, which I picked, and I appreciate your help. While I appreciate all the efforts administration and the bond committee have made, I believe the process has been rushed in order to meet a hard deadline with county elections. This has not allowed the community adequate time to evaluate the list of expenditures, which is now out of date. The 2016 bond failed overwhelmingly, and I have little confidence that it will pass in a special election in 2017. I think it is important to bring all stakeholders together, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, in order to better prioritize needs and develop consensus that is supported by all members of the community, and therefore more likely to pass in 2018. I agree also that a bond is needed. I would like to have the committee meet over a longer period of time and have all stakeholders represented, the people in the South as well as the North. So that's all I have to say at this point. Is there any other conversations, any other discussions that?
President Pingarelli,
Yes.
may I?
Yes, you're welcome.
Comment on just a few of the comments. On the list that's been brought up before, I would characterize that as a draft of a draft, that is not a shopping list, that is not what the bond is based upon. And that it was shared in efforts of full transparency on that's how the process begins. But that it is the be-all, end-all. The district is much more professional than that, and that is just a misrepresentation where people have put it that way. I want to be very clear on that. Secondly, I want to, with our agreements with the developers, our district is progressive in that. We have a development fee for every home built. This is not required by law. Many districts aren't able to do that. We also have, and what's very fragile here and what hasn't been said out loud tonight, is we have fragile agreements on sites for school land. We are beyond the dates when the developer said, I'll give you this land if you build a school by this date. Political consideration, I'm just advising you that is a true statement. We are working with attorneys to hold on to those gentlemen's agreements, if you will, and turn them into something more than that. But they are fragile. They are fragile. You deserve to know that as you're about to make that decision if you don't already. Is that a fair way to say that, Mr. Hicks? So I would just make those two clarifications, the political decisions aside. That list is just simply a beginning point to talk about where they are. When it has we don't know what all of the things we will need to buy 10 or 15 years from now. We don't know the cost of things that we will need to buy 10 or 15 years from now, always. We know that the state is not funding us at the same rate that they fund charters, and what our need is to keep up on maintenance, on technology, on equipment, okay? So those prices are very difficult to project. When I attended the bond committee, one short example, well, you bought projectors in 2012, why are there projectors on here again? Because we're pretty sure that the projectors are going to be obsolete by 2022 or 2024. So projecting out the need. So that list is about beginning to project. Just want to make that clarification there. It's not a shopping list. And I think somehow we let it be characterized as that. And so I just want to clarify that. The other, we work very hard, predating me way back with developers. We have strong, well, we don't have quite as strong agreements as I would like, but we have agreements with them. And there are several pieces of land that if we are not able to build a school on them soon, I'm not saying we will lose them, but we are in danger of losing them. We have no land identified for a high school site, and that land's only going to become more expensive. Thank you.
Mrs. Pingerelli?
Yes.
Dr. Stifler, has anything said tonight changed your recommendation? Changed your recommendation that you made in our agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Originally, let me clarify that or expound upon that. 6 months ago, I believed that we needed to wait until 2018. Saw a significant group of people come to the table with passion that said, we need to carry this, we see what happened, and we need to do that. And so that's what changed my mind. The need for the bond, as every board member has said, has not changed. The question in my mind, is it winnable? Then we were faced with the timeline. Community came and asked, some members of our community came and asked for to do that. I believe in process, and I did not drive the process, I allowed for the process. If you'd have asked me in December, and I told you in December, I believe 2018 was the right time. At this time, I believe 2017 is the right time.
May I make some more comments?
Sure.
Okay. Can't help but wonder if everyone who says we must pass a bond, if it did go for 17, if they would help us pass a bond in 17. I have my doubts. I have my doubts because I'm really not buying the stall tactic. Because the people that are promoting waiting are individuals whom I've known for 11 years to always object to funding public schools. So I question the validity of the stall tactic. Mrs. Martinez, I am so pleased to hear you talk about equity. It is an important issue. It's one I know that this board has committed to discussing further, and I hope that Mrs. Davy was listening, that part of our conversation needs to be equity in resources spent in maintaining and rehabilitating some of our buildings. Thank you for adding the importance of maintaining our dibs, for lack of a better word, on some land that we have, because we know that land will be very, very expensive. I will reiterate that whether it's land or whether it's nails, that the costs will only go up the longer we delay. Thank you, Mr. Hicks, for alleviating the concern about the cost of the election. When it was $250,000, that sounds like a lot, and the fact that it is not that high makes me feel better. I had heard at some point that special elections in odd numbers of years for bonds are more likely to pass. Have you heard that?
Madam President, members of the board, Yes, but that's a long history look, and I really think that a lot of things have changed in elections over the last 8 years. And
So there's no proof
I
of
don't-
that, but historically, bond elections in odd number of years are more likely to. That's another thing.
Madam President, members of the board, can I just, so I did go to Maricopa County elections today and sat through, this year would be an all-mail-in election. That changes the cost structure, but just to be clear, there is a cost no matter what. Whenever we go out for an election, we are required to pay our portion of that cost. If we're all alone, we're paying all of it. If we're with others, we're sharing. But just to be clear, there's a cost no matter what whenever there's an election.
Okay. It is true that competing with the city, I think, had a huge impact on the 2016 election. Is there any talk of the city of Peoria going out for a measure in 2017?
Madam President, members of the board, our latest, I asked Ms. Airy if she could reach out to the city, and she did, or?
President Pingarelli, Mrs. Connect, none that we have heard of as of yet that they have had those discussions.
And the hour is late, so probably we would have known by now, right? Because of that. Well, I value the research that you did, Mrs. Martinez. It's very impressive. Your data is excellent. I'm pleased that you're asking questions of the community. I will say 100% of the emails that I received were from constituents who said, please go out for a bond in 2017. The teachers have said 2017. The 7 of the 10 people on the committee who have said yes are all parents and grandparents. The 3 that aren't have their constituencies, and we value those constituencies. But at the end of the day, the committee recommended, a majority of the committee recommended that we do this, and it hasn't changed my mind that it's the right thing to do for the long-term stability of our school districts and the best interests of our students and our families, and to be conservative about the costs going up. The best time to do it is now.
Mrs. Pingarelli.
Sure.
2 comments. Thank you for that feedback, and I appreciate the dialogue between our governing board as we do make tough decisions. First, with dealing with the city of Peoria, I also learned when they deal with economic development, they have the ability to give subsidies, land subsidies, to help offset costs. I believe a parent told me, or stated tonight, you fund what you value. So let's have that conversation with the city of Peoria. They also give building infrastructure, offset overhead costs, all in subsidies. So we need to continue to think outside the box and have that conversation with the city of Peoria. Or with Glendale as well, as we do have schools there too. That conversation is not typical. It's never been done from my understanding. But why are we not having those types of conversation? In regards to our committee, the 5 of those committee members were picked for a specific reason, is to deal with the boundary. So when I look at all the members, do they represent all the community? At this point, I can say I believe it was not. So yes, it is a 3-7 vote, but 5 of those members came from one particular area who definitely need it. So I would say they had a special interest in that committee. If we would have had 5 people from the South, would the outcome would have been different? We don't know. We didn't have that conversation. That's a conversation still to be had. So I still believe at this time, we need to have conversations. And rushing into it is not responsible.
President Pingarelli.
Yes.
So I'll leave you with this, and I've always said this. If we don't invest now, the expense is greater later, to Mrs. Connect's point. This is an investment in our students, our teachers and staff, and our community, certainly our city and our state, because it is known that a thriving education system equates to a very successful and thriving community. So once again, I'm 100% for the bond to be in the in 2017 election.
Just one reiteration, because this is what I started with. We're not deciding whether or not we go out for a bond. We are giving the community the option of deciding whether they want us to go out for a line of credit. We are not deciding whether or not a bond is purchased.
But
We're giving them the choice.
Mrs. Pengarelli?
Yes.
But we do pay for it. Our district does.
For the election.
Yes.
Right.
Any other comments, Mrs. Doan?
I would like to say that also, yeah, I did get yelled at for voting for things to be put to the community. The community does look to us to make the choice. Our name goes on it. And I want to be able to stand there and say, we have done our due diligence. We have done everything we know, everything we can about this bond. The money, yeah, things do get more expensive, but we're not going to be spending that money tomorrow. We're not going to be spending it right away. We're going to be selling it slow over time anyway, the bonds. I don't want to go into, I'm not a person that likes to rush into a decision. I'm not as articulate as Ms. Ceja Martinez, but I think the groundwork has to be laid in order to convince the naysayers. Those are the people we have to have on board. All the people in this room, we know we need the bond. We're talking amongst ourselves and we're saying, yes, all right, this has to happen. And we know a lot of people we'll talk to and they will say, of course we have to have. But there are a lot of people that don't. And they don't go on our website and they don't visit our schools and they don't want any more taxes. There's going to have to be that dialogue and we're going to have to be able to show them what's going on and convince them. I believe we can. I just believe we need a little time to do it. We need to have those conversations. Thank you.
Ms. Pingerelli, I'm going to make a motion because I believe it's the right thing to do. I move that we go out for this bond election in 2017.
I'll need a second.
Second.
All right, the motion on the table has been motioned and second. Members, please cast your vote. It fails 3-2. Next agenda item. Agenda item number 13, presentation and consideration of the approval of evaluation systems for 2017-18 school year.
President
Ms. Lewis.
Pingerelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. It's the time of year when we seek your approval for each of the performance evaluation documents that will be used in the coming year for the purpose of evaluating employees. As you can see by what was provided to you, there's a wide range of documents used depending on classification and position, and nothing has changed on those with the exception of the dates embedded within the documents. So we are seeking your approval of the performance evaluation documents for the 17-18 school year.
All right, open up for questions, dialogue. Mrs. Doan?
No, I don't have anything.
Mr. Sandoval?
No questions or comments at this point. Thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Ceja Martinez?
I just want to say that I've lived through this process. It's very tedious. I trust that you guys are doing the requirements that the state mandates, and then hopefully we make it as simple as possible for that process, and that will happen going forward, because it does take a long time to go through an evaluation piece like this. So thank you so much for all your efforts.
Thank you. This is an action item. I would need a motion and a second to bring it forward.
I will move that we approve the evaluation systems for the 2018 school year.
Second?
I second.
Thank you. All right, members, please cast your vote. Passes 5-0. Next agenda item, number 14. First reading and discussion of proposed changes to policy JEB, entrance age requirements. Mr. Savoy.
Good evening, President Pangarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. Board members, tonight this is a first read, and it's really a catch-up item. Basically what this deals with is a procedure that we have in our district for families if they do want to consider having their child who may, in kindergarten, who may turn 5 after September 1st, to go through a screening process with our district. And once that's completed, then they may be considered for entrant into kindergarten, even though they're not 5 by September 1st. The same is true with first grade and the age of 6. The reason for us bringing this to you tonight is that in 2009, the governing board did approve this procedure for us. And at that time, we were using our own policy manual. When we adopted the ASBA, the Arizona School Boards Association policy, we did not update that at this time. We've been operating this way all along, but a question did come up this year when the person was denied that opportunity and then they couldn't find it in policy. So really what we're doing is just cleaning up our policy. It is a first read. If you have any questions, either tonight or between now and our next board meeting that I could clear up. Otherwise, we'd bring it back for a second read and approval in the consent agenda.
I'm going to ask a couple questions about this, if I may, Mrs. Pingerelli. This is a cost to the district if we test kids before age 5, or no?
Actually, it's not a cost to the district.
Charge a
Excuse me,
fee?
I'm sorry, President Pangarelli, members of the board. We charge families $30 to cover the cost of us doing that assessment and paying for the person who does that assessment. Typically, a teacher would conduct that assessment. They're paid $25 per hour. The screening is usually less than that, about 30 minutes, but there are other office-incurred costs. But that's the fee that we charge each family for each child assessed.
Okay, you answered the question. So it's not an expense to the district. We have our child development expert in the room.
We do.
My question would be, is there any evidence to suggest that kids who start earlier do better in the long run of their academic career? Yeah.
You thought you were going to get the rest of it. You thought you were going to get the rest of it.
Mrs. Knecht, Mrs. Pingerelli, members of the board. No.
Okay.
And it's hard to say because you're making a decision at 4 that impacts them forever. If I had a crystal ball, but I don't know that anything that we can do at 4 is going to tell us that.
Mm-hmm. Are there any negative outcomes for starting kids earlier than age 5?
There can be.
Like what?
That was actually my dissertation. If you'd like me to stand and talk about that, I can. What really happens is academically, we don't see a lot of differences. What happens, the negative impact is social emotional because they're so much younger.
Okay.
Don't make the best decisions all the time.
Right, and sometimes being the youngest and the smallest can have some negative consequences.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe we need to think more about this than just this cursory overview. Maybe this is something that we need to have a conversation with the experts on our staff and really contemplate what's in the best interest of our youngest learners.
Yes.
All right, Mrs. Seja Martinez, do you have any comments, questions?
No, I would agree. I would agree. I know that we have some Head Start programs in the city of Peoria down south, and I volunteered throughout my college years. And that interaction with age is important. So looking at their development. I know you've said some things about brain development, so that would be a great opportunity to review that information as well.
Mrs. Doan?
I'll agree. I'd like to revisit this policy, I guess.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, I think that's consensus. Looking forward to learning more without question.
I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
next month.
All right, agenda item number 15, report and discussion on local, state, and federal legislative issues and activities. Dr. Stifler.
Will, would you please go to the second to the last page?
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. I'm reading off of, no, I've got, sorry.
But
What?
it is me.
It is you. I read the wrong one.
President Pingarelli, members of the board, that last page that was up there just a moment ago is the legislative agenda. That page right there, that's on your screen, is the current legislative agenda for ASBA. They look to their members. You are, among the 220 of their members.
Dr. Stifler, would you mind turning your microphone on, please?
Thank you. Hello, I'm here. ASBA is seeking direction from its membership by May 11th to begin crafting the legislative agenda
By
for
today?
next year.
By today?
Yes. May 12th, I apologize. So, this is the current legislative agenda. There is a form attached. It was mailed to all governing board members in the state. We shared this with you last week. The question really to you, to expedite this is, as you reviewed this, did you see anything that needs to be altered in the political agenda or added for ASBA? If you do, then I would suggest that you bring that forward, see if there's a second, it's voted, and we can, and Dana and I will make sure that your input is forwarded. If you have no changes to the ASBA legislative agenda, either revisions or additions, then that won't be necessary.
I only had one idea.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like ASBA to encourage the school's facilities board to revisit their formula for where new schools can be built with an eye towards proximity, towards geographic distance. Because right now, the current formula says that we can't build schools in the north because we have a lot of students in the south, and that doesn't make sense to
In
me.
the current formula, we will never qualify for a
In the
school,
current formula, we will never qualify for a school.
in my opinion.
So I would like to address that in some way and encourage ASBA to lobby for that on our behalf.
I would recommend to you then, Mrs. Connect, that you make a motion and see if there's a second, and if we vote on, and if that's successfully approved, then we can forward that in the board's name to ASBA.
I move that the Peoria Unified School District Governing Board submit to the Arizona School Boards Association a proposal for an agenda item that would request that the school's facilities board revisit their formula for new schools in regards to geography. Want to help me, Mr. Hicks? What am I leaving out?
Why don't you let administration craft that? I think we have the gist of what you
You
want.
guys understand it.
You would like to see an alteration to the SFB formula for when a district qualifies for a new school that better reflects the situations that we currently live through.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I'll second that.
Mrs. Doan just seconded that. I
Or
would-
we could just vote on the general idea.
To direct administration to.
Yes, ever, right. Very good.
I recommend you call for the vote.
I will.
President Pingarelli.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Members, please cast your vote. Passes 5-0. Are there any other recommendations?
Mrs. Pingarelli, I have a question. In regards to Title 15, how come that's not on the list? I know that there's ties our hands a lot.
President Pingarelli, members of the board, ASBA several years ago changed its advocacy policy. I don't have an exact number, but I don't think I'm exaggerating if I would say they were advocating for maybe 40 or 45 things. None of those things were happening, so they decided to, what are the most important things to everyone? And so a political strategy was put into place to focus the efforts instead of a shotgun effort, if you will. And that's why. There are efforts underway, I think they're on the margins in my opinion, but to revise Title 15. And the next thing is where I'm going to tell you all the additions to Title 15, so that's very frustrating. But that's why it's not there.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, additions? No. All right. Next item. Item number 16, report and discussion on local, state, and federal legislative issues and activities, and that's where I was a few minutes ago. Dr. Stifler, you're still up.
It's still me. I'll try and be brief. However, the legislature just ended its session, and so there are some important updates that I need to give you, or I feel that I need to. There were adjustments to the formula. We don't have all of the ramifications of those yet. After the legislature passes a law, then the different agencies have to figure out how to administer the law. It will not surprise you to know that all of the forms that Mr. Hicks and others are going to have to fill out have not been developed yet that meet the law, regardless. Under funding formula, the base level was adjusted for inflation, up by 1.3%. That is marginally more than we had expected, and you have already approved that if we got more, we would put it where it was supposed to be, and thus it shall be. That formula adjustments continued district additional assistance and charter school additional assistance suspensions. That means we still won't have enough capital money. We will still be at 15% of the funding that we were in 2007, or roughly about that. Continues the K-12 rollover of $930 million. That's money that's owed to the schools. That is, there's a trick that happens and it gets pushed to July 1 instead of paying it on June 30th. That holds. And ASBA had been advocating for a hold harmless provision for declining enrollment districts in current year funding. That was not funded. We are not a declining district. We don't have the final numbers, but we're up a bit, and I don't project that that's going to impact us directly. On teacher pay, dominated the headlines for the last couple of weeks. The legislature provided an appropriation, and I think it's important to say it's an appropriation. It's not in the regular funding formula, of an increase of just over 1% for a pay increase for next school year, and another just over 1% the next year. There are some new criteria for who would qualify for that. You have to have been a teacher in Arizona schools, not necessarily with us, in order to do that. Since it is not in the regular funding formula, I am recommending, not just I, but our beginning conversations go something like this. We cannot put that in and just say that's part of how much we pay people, because someday we may not have it there to do that. It's not ongoing money. It's in the law for 2 years, so that it needs to be in the form of a stipend. We have begun conversations that I believe that it'll give time to sort it out, and that stipend should be paid just after Thanksgiving. And we should have time to do that. But we'll work with our teacher groups in order to figure that out. So we're just beginning on that. On results-based funding, this was something the governor pushed hard on. $37.6 million was appropriated for results-based funding. What that says is that if you're in the top 10% of schools, that on how you score on Arizona Merit, you get a bonus. The school gets a bonus, not the district gets a bonus. That's a new way to do things. We'll have to live through that. If you are a school with high poverty, you get more money per student than if you're a school that is not high poverty. There are a lot of projections around on how that looked like before. I'm counting that you've probably seen that, but that's how that goes. We'll have to see how that goes. If it was based upon last year's scores, 2 of our schools would have qualified for the money. We have no mechanism in place to direct all of the funding towards, as we talk about equity, towards this school and that school. We are going to have to develop those. And of course, we're waiting on the results from Arizona Merit, which we don't have yet, to know where that would go, and then how does that go in the distribution. This is going to take a while to work itself out. On JTEDs, continued to fund large JTEDs at 95.5% of the amount, so that's where we are this year. There are still the problems with 9th grade and that. We are among the districts that are participating in the lead testing of water. There's a line in the budget that says it allows the School Facilities Board to help districts fix those situations. They had $200,000 to fix those. Most of those situations are drinking fountains that need some different parts. They're not larger. Governor Ducey signed a law that said that let's make it easier to, if there's a teacher shortage, let's make it easier to become teachers. We're going to have to figure out, we're going to have to learn as the rules go into place exactly what that means. We don't know that yet. The governor also signed legislation on loan forgiveness programs for people who want to become teachers. Those are new programs. We'll have to see what happens with those. He also directed that universities develop programs to train people to teach for free. That hasn't happened yet. We'll have to see what happens on that as well. You just voted on to approve our evaluation system. It is my professional opinion that it is unnecessarily complicated because it absolutely complies with the law. It's going to change one more time because the evaluation system will be required to include 50% of quantitative data with between 20 to 40% based on student academic progress. It's going to mean we're going to have to work with our teachers. They're not going to be very happy about it as we have to adjust the formulas again on how that goes. We don't know how this will play out. There's a new law that says if people who are qualified in special education design the instruction, the people who deliver the instruction do not have to have a special education certification. I don't know. That's new for Arizona. We will have to see how that goes. Almost done here. These are not prioritized. There's a law that we'll have to see about journalistic freedom of speech at high schools and high school newspapers to ensure that that's in place. The idea is to protect that to a greater degree than is already there. The governor has a computer science initiative and coding initiative. We'll have to see how that goes. And finally, there was a lot of to-do in the Arizona legislature about there was no money to fund the Arizona Department of Education to collect all of this data. That was funded in the end to the tune of $7.3 million, so that they will be able to see how many students we have, and that we have a system to enter all of this data. President Pingarelli, here endeth my report.
I would like to take a 5-minute break.
Don't blame you, man.
Thank you. We'll be back in 5 minutes. right, let's get the rest of the evening completed. Next item, item number 17, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Start with Mrs. Doan.
Well, I would like to suggest that we go ahead and put on the agenda to form a citizens bond committee to go out for a bond in 18.
I second that.
Okay.
Mr. Sandoval?
I don't have any at the moment, thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
I did, but I forgot.
Okay.
Mrs.
maybe you'll-
Pingarelli, I'm afraid to tell you that I have some.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend during this item that, not for lack of work on your part or my part, but we haven't gotten through all the list of things that we had to talk about this spring. I'm going to recommend that the governing board, I realize it's late, but I'm asking you to either pick June 26th or June 27th during the day for a study session. That study session would include a citizens bond committee, equity, a preview of a strategic planning process, the concept of a memorandum of understanding with employees about how to handle future policy updates, and about student discipline and safety discussion. And the list is actually longer than that, but that's all that I would dare recommend to you in one study session.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
Yes.
I'll be on a 2-week Spanish immersion trip during that time.
Awesome.
Are there any other, that's the best dates? I'd like to have Mrs. Connect
We could
present.
go, I would hope all board members could be there. It could be any date that, all dates are problematical, of course. It could be the end of July, could work as well. Staff in this building are taking vacation basically through early July in different, so I won't have staff, depending on what questions are addressed, to develop the pieces.
Okay.
But-
Mrs. Connect, when are you leaving, or I guess when are you available?
I'm gone the last 2 weeks in June. Can I get Google on here? I can look at my whole calendar. I got it. Oops.
May I ask a favor, please, Ms. Airy? On my desk is my phone with my calendar. Would you please get that? Do you know Baltimore?
What's the month? June what?
Well, it was the 26th, 27th, but Mrs. Connect is not available.
So what's the next?
It was going to be in July, is that correct, Dr. Stifler?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Since Mrs. Connect couldn't make the 26th, 27th, is the next dates in July?
This is saying this page is accessing information that is not under its control. Do you want to continue?
And I don't have my calendar in front of me. I left my phone in the van. I can kind of guess.
Well, may I ask that it would be important to, if we can nail it down in June, if June is not possible, and it looks like June is not possible,
Okay.
then perhaps it's not necessary that that date is settled upon tonight, that we could do some calendars over email over the next couple of days.
That would work.
To settle on a date.
You can doodle us. Yeah,
And we'll aim for
easy, it's fun.
perhaps the third week in July or something like that.
Okay.
Can I say up front, Tuesdays, Amy has speech therapies in the day.
Okay, so
that's-
Tuesdays are bad?
Tuesdays are not very good for me.
That would help. Any other days that are bad to avoid?
I'm going to the CTE meetings in the 11th through the 15th, I think,
Of July?
July.
Okay.
that's down in Tucson?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you going?
That's it.
I'm good in July.
So Dr. Stifler, are we looking at across 2 days or just one day?
Just one day. I'm looking for one 4-hour session. So
4 hours?
That's
breakfast and then work through it and have lunch at the end, and if we had to go on, we would go on, but hopefully we would break bread and congratulate ourselves that we made it through those 4 hours.
It's a lot of line items. Do we have enough time for all those?
I believe we can if I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just basing
We haven't proven that
subject.
I haven't
Say it's
proven
like
that
3
that's
hours.
possible
Yeah.
to date.
We like to discuss things a little much.
Yeah, and they all deserve the time, so.
If the board had a whole day, could reserve a whole day to address items before the district, I would certainly support that. That just seemed presumptuous to ask for.
I can give a whole day in July.
Would a Saturday be?
Sign me up.
Would a Saturday be open to you guys?
Yep.
It would be open to me. I don't know about Dr. Stifler.
I could do a Saturday. It would be difficult to, we could craft that. I believe I could do a Saturday. I wouldn't bring all staff to bear on a Saturday. But
Really?
we could prepare before that.
Good point.
So that doesn't rule out a Saturday. It just, that's what the flavor of the meeting would be, which is okay.
And you're in Tucson 11th through the 15th,
I think the
right?
11th through the 15th. Oh,
You staying the whole time?
no, so when does it start? I'm sorry, I got my dates wrong. I don't have my calendar. Ah, so it's the 15th. I am wrong, so I think it's the 15th through the, don't quote me, I'm not sure, I don't have my,
Yes, 15th is Saturday.
We
so
have-
I'm not sure, I don't have my calendar. in front of me.
And you're on the 27th, right, of July, is that correct? Or
I will get, I'm not sure.
Perhaps right here, we can work back and forth on people's calendars.
Yep. Agreed.
Would you like to target a Saturday? Would you like to not target a Saturday? Would you like to target, like, say, a morning? Would you like to target a whole day?
If
That
it-
level of direction would be very helpful on finding a day.
If it's for me, I would prefer a Saturday if it's going to be all day,
Okay?
just because we're short-staffed at work.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what everybody else feels.
Saturday works great for me. But I do realize
I don't
that we don't want to
prefer a
bring the staff
Saturday.
in, so.
Can do it.
I'll work for it. You have a couple of months to
Yeah.
find that date.
Okay,
We'll
perfect.
find that date.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right, we're still on requests for agenda items. Mrs. Connect? Or is it with Mrs. Seahar Martinez?
No, our list is pretty long.
It really is.
Well, I was going to add one, but maybe I can hold off until a future time, until we clean everything up. All right, then I guess let's move on to next agenda item. Consideration of approval of the consent agenda. Does any board member need a item pulled from the consent agenda? No. All right, then it's an action item. I would need a motion and a second to move it forward.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Members, please cast your vote. And that passes 5-0. Next agenda item is Budget Facilities Planning and Construction Report. Would you be able to pull that up? And this is on our website for anybody that is interested. Thank you very much. Next agenda item is district budget report for the month of March 2017. And again, that is on our website for all that are interested. Next agenda item is district enrollment report for March 2017. And again, that is on our website for all that are interested. Next agenda item, upcoming meetings. It looks like we are going to have all the graduations in May. I'm happy to be at a couple of them. And that is also on our website for anybody that is interested. Next item is draft agenda for June 8th, 2017, regular board meeting. Thank you very much. Next item, item 36, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. Does anybody at this late hour would like to readdress anything? I hear none. Okay, next item would be consideration for adjournment. I would need a motion and a second to go home.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, members, please cast your vote. Passes 5-0, and I just wanted to thank all of the staff for being here at such a late hour tonight. I hope Dr. Stifler does make adjustments for that. Thank you.
Mrs. McCarty?